I didn't see that battle myself. Everything is from my little sister's memory. Lian Daofei was extremely powerful. He single-handedly battled against the 4 generals and many 7 Dao sect disciples. With overwhelming strength, he seriously injured them all. It was also at this time that my little sister and several concubines rebelled and attacked with Lian Daofei. Just at the most chaotic moment, Lian Daofei flew past everyone and went toward where 7 Colored was in closed-door cultivation. This forced 7 Colored to come out and battle him. That battle was extremely fierce. 7 Colored was already injured, so he was no match. He summoned the heavenly Dao stored in the caved world and used its devouring ability to confront Lian Daofei. In the end, Lian Daofei was seriously injured and was devoured by the heavenly Dao, leaving his whereabouts unknown. However, due to his immortal celestial body, he can't die, so he should still be in this cave world. However, the heavenly Dao was also seriously injured and died. Countless drops of its blood scattered across the world and eventually dissipated. However, the fact that lives continued to be born in this cave world means that the heavenly Dao didn't die. 7 Colored's body collapsed and divided into 3 main souls. One of them contained all his spells and Dao spells, becoming the him that is outside this ship right now. Another contained his comprehension and essences. It escaped after the great battle and exists inside the inner realm. The last soul contained all of 7 Colored's memories, including how to summon the heavenly Dao, and where he hid the secret he obtained from that fragment. This last soul had no essences or spells, and even now, no one knows where it is. He may be a cultivator, he may be a mortal, he may be some fierce beast over countless reincarnation cycles, perhaps even he has forgotten who he was, his memory is still in slumber. The soul that inherited all the spells is the 7 Colored Taoist outside. He is the most powerful one, and he has forced several of the concubines to work for him. He even took Lian Daofei's palm print servant boy to work under him, before settling in the outer realm. He has been looking for the 3rd soul for all these years. He gradually obtained his own will. Once he finds the 3rd soul and devours it, and then devours the 2nd soul that inherited the essences, he will become the new 7 Colored. Similarly, the 2nd soul in the inner realm is also looking for the 3rd soul. Whichever one of them obtains the 3rd soul first will become the one in charge. Because the 3rd soul contains the memories, it is impossible for them to devour each other and fuse without it. That's why the 7 Colored Taoist and the 2nd soul still can devour each other. Not only them, but even the other fragments that scattered when 7 Colored scattered can devour each other either. When 7 Colored died, aside from the 3 main souls, there were 7 fragments. These 7 fragments changed identities over countless reincarnations, but their souls belonged to 7 Colored. The 7 Colored Taoist and the 2nd soul completely ignored them. Even if they did find them, they can be devoured, so they just let them cultivate on their own. Once they find the 3rd soul and devour the other, the remaining 7 fragments will return to them and form the complete 7 Colored Celestial Sovereign. This is the whole secret of this cave world. A huge wave was set off in Wang Lin's heart. Earlier, Wang Lin could keep calm when this woman talked about the matter about the immortal astral continent, but after hearing everything else, he began to take deep breaths. He retreated a few steps, and his expression rapidly changed. He finally knew what the 3rd one was. He finally knew that the 7 Colored Taoist was different from the statue he had obtained. He finally knew what the woman in silver in his storage space meant when she said she hadn't opened the door. The door was very likely the door to the cave. It wasn't that someone had opened the door, but the woman before him had told the madman how to open the door. There might be some other things that didn't match up, but Wang Lin hadn't seen it himself, so he could only create his own images based on what the woman had said. Perhaps the facts might be slightly different, but this was likely the truth of what had happened. 3 souls, 7 fragments, so it turns out there are 3 souls and 7 fragments. The sovereign said that old Ghost John should have died when they met at the Cloud Sea. The sovereign's shock doesn't seem to be fake. Even he didn't know also. In the 7 Colored realm in the brilliant void, when I went to save Qing Shui, the 7 Colored Taoist appeared. He seemed to admire old Ghost John. He said that old Ghost John was different. Could it be that old Ghost John is the 2nd soul? Only then would he be qualified to confront the 7 Colored Taoist. Or it can be said that there is another soul inside old Ghost John, and that is the 2nd soul. It must be like this. The war between inner and outer realms continued due to old Ghost John and the seven-colored Taoist. They were trying to find the third soul under the endless slaughter. Then who is the third soul? Wang Lin's mind trembled. This news ripped open all the fog in his mind and allowed him to see the truth. There are also the seven fragments back in the seven-colored realm and the brilliant void. I noticed that the seven-colored Taoist looked at Qing Shui as if he was looking at himself. I found it strange at the time, but I couldn't get the answer. However, now the answer seems obvious. Senior brother Qing Shui is one of the seven-colored celestial sovereign S7 fragments. No wonder his life is miserable. No wonder he could obtain the slaughter essence. No wonder he was so powerful as soon as he entered the third step. Among the seven, the only one I know is Qing Shui. As for the other six, who are they? I, Wang Lin. One as well. Wang Lin silently pondered and coldness appeared in his eyes. My goal is to kill seven-colored. Only by killing him can I eliminate my hatred for him. Our purpose is the same. It will be a win for both of us. I can ask teacher to welcome you to the immortal astral continent to reduce the penalty. I don't want the seven Tao sect. Once seven-colored is dead, everything belongs to you. As for the other people in the cave world, they can leave here. They can survive the penalty of leaving. Not even my teacher can help with this. However, I still have another method. Although they can't enter the immortal astral continent normally, they can still reincarnate there. By using the reincarnation method, their souls can follow you to the immortal astral continent, and once their memories awaken, you can find them. This is the best method I can think of. Wang Lin silently pondered for a long time. He looked up at the woman while pondering. Even if we cooperate, with the power of the seven-colored Taoist and old Ghost John, we are no match. How do we kill them? Hearing Wang Lin's words, the woman laughed. It has to be said that the woman was extremely beautiful. When she laughed, she was like a flower blooming and would make one's heart pound. I have two methods of killing seven-colored. Because of the countless seals on the cave, and the destruction left on the cave during the Great War, I am unable to come in person. I can only borrow my little sister's body and gather a bit of my origin soul here. However, if you can lure the seven-colored Taoist or the second soul to the core of the cave, where the door to the cave is, then I can gather more of my origin soul. Then I can kill them with my own strength. That is the first method. This method is not perfect, but I still have a second method. The key is the third soul. I'll teach you a spell, and if you can find the third soul, you can use this spell to devour it and completely erase its existence. From then on, you will be the third soul. I'll help you devour the seven-colored Taoist and the second soul. You will absorb the remaining seven fragments, and from that moment on, you will be seven-colored. My little sister and I can stay with you. She can be your concubine and I can be your Tao partner. Then everything will return back to its original trajectory. If you have other women, they can also become your concubines. Even on the immortal astral continent, if you take fancy to any female cultivator, I can capture them for you and we can cultivate together. Seven-colored was like that back then. I helped him capture a lot of female cultivators. Aside from my little sister, I helped him find most of his 8 concubines. With the help of my teacher, once we pair cultivate, our souls will fuse and our cultivation levels will increase. With the treasure you obtain from that fragment from the immemorial gold domain, we can have free reign on the immortal astral continent. It is much better than being stuck in a mere cave world. The woman smiled and her words slowly drifted toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin calmed his heart and looked at the woman. For some reason, he thought of something he had encountered a long time ago. That matter had left a profound feeling on Wang Lin. Although it had been more than 1,000 years, he still couldn't forget it. In the demon spirit land, Wang Lin had met the sovereign's daughter, the holy ancestor of the Tattoo clan. She was extremely miserable. Her eyes were dug out, and her whole body was suppressed in Qing Lin's cave. Her resentment was monstrous. This woman's resentment toward Qing Lin was very similar to that of the woman before him. That woman's words were extremely mournful, and Wang Lin had almost believed her. However, he eventually heard what had happened personally from Qing Lin, and it confused him. He didn't know who was right in this matter. We can talk about this matter later. Right now, the important matter is how do we avoid the pursuit of the seven-colored Taoist outside? The moment Wang Lin heard her words, he sneered in his heart. However, he was cunning and wouldn't refuse her outright. After all, their initial cooperation of killing seven-colored benefited everyone. This matter is not difficult. Once we exchange oath of blood that we will cooperate, then I'll manipulate this ship to safely send you out." The woman smiled. Oath of blood? Wang Lin's eyes narrowed, and he suddenly understood. Her leading him here and saying those words, there was obviously a deeper meaning. "This matter is not urgent. Where is the altar you talked about back then?" Lately, Leo has been having half headaches, always seeming to see light waves in the form of lines, affecting my vision, sometimes momentarily half blinded, perhaps too exhausted. When Fan Shanmeng heard Wang Lin's words, her eyes shined. She smiled, but just as she was about to speak, the ship shook violently. This tremble came from outside like a violent wind. This caused the ship to tremble, and a loud rumble echoed inside. The ship was pushed back several hundred kilometers. This suddenly change caused Fan Shanmeng's expression to change, and she looked outside the ship. Wang Lin leaped up and floated 3 inches off the deck as he drifted with the boat. His eyes shined as he looked outside. Outside the Soul Devil ship, the 7-colored Taoist continued to wave his hand, and every wave created a large amount of wind. The wind collided with the protective barrier around the ship, causing it to collapse layer by layer. Soon, a small portion was missing. It is fine, he can open the Soul Devil ship without several days of time. Fan Shanmeng let out a cold snort as she withdrew her gaze from outside. She looked at Wang Lin and began talking again. "The altar you are talking about is something my little sister obtained by accident. It contains the power of the Ancient One inside, but she can break it with her cultivation, and there is no need to break it. However, it is different for you. If you can break the protection on the altar and gain its inheritance, your cultivation level will increase greatly. This altar is in the deepest part of the Soul Devil ship. Are you going now? However, you will only have 3 days. In these 3 days I can control the Soul Devil ship and escape from the 7-colored Taoist, but at most it will only be 3 days. 3 days is not enough." Wang Lin frowned, and at this moment, the ship shook once again. It seemed the 7-colored Taoist had begun attacking with even stronger spells, and the ship seemed like it was on the verge of collapsing. Wang Lin didn't reveal what he was thinking as he slowly said, "There's no need to rush with the oath of blood. I am very interested in your Soul Devil ship. 3 days should be enough for me to study it." "You want to study the restrictions on this ship?" Fan Shanmeng was startled. Whether it was her or her sister, they didn't know of Wang Lin's talent for restrictions. When she heard Wang Lin's words, she revealed a strange expression. After a long time, she spoke. "This Soul Devil ship is a treasure of my great soul sect. Although it is not top-ranked, it is still a mid-ranked treasure. Forget you, not even I have fully understood it. Fellow cultivator Wang, I recommend you use these 3 days to try the altar. If you can absorb the power inside, your cultivation level will surely increase." Fan Shanmeng's words were gentle, but her meaning was obvious. She didn't think Wang Lin was qualified to study this ship, and even thought Wang Lin's words were extremely absurd. This child is only a mere ant cultivator of the cave world, yet he wants to study a treasure of my great soul sect? It is simply ridiculous. He's simply overestimating himself. Oh, could it be that fellow cultivator is afraid that I'll take over the ship once I understand the restrictions? Wang Lin revealed a smile that wasn't a smile as he looked at Fan Shanmeng. Wang Lin was well aware of what she was thinking. In his life, he had been able to clearly see through everyone other than the all-seer. The 2 sisters clearly knew that the 7-colored Taoist would end up chasing after them. After delaying for a bit to wait for the 7-colored Taoist to catch up, they used him to lure Wang Lin to the Soul Devil ship. This ship was a hidden threat, and the 7-colored Taoist was an open threat. Although they hadn't threatened him on the surface, this was more effective than any kind of threat. In this situation, it seemed Wang Lin could only listen to their suggestion and exchange the oath of blood. It felt like there was no other way out of this situation. As a result, Wang Lin would be in a completely passive situation, with the other side holding the initiative. In truth, it was indeed as Wang Lin had thought. These 2 sisters indeed had such a plan. Perhaps if it was anyone beside Wang Lin, they could only listen to avoid the danger for now. However, with Wang Lin's wisdom, he wouldn't easily believe their words. He still liked to take matters into his own hands, to be a master of his own life. At this moment, the Soul Devil ship was being controlled by the sisters. Even if Wang Lin went to the altar, everything would be under their control. To exaggerate it a bit, Wang Lin felt no sense of security while being in someone else's treasure. Also, how could Wang Lin give up so easily? He was extremely cunning and his words contained a hidden meaning. If he could really understand the soul devil ship and take control of it, not only would the issue of the seven-colored Taoist be resolved, but he would also escape the trap the sisters had set. Fan Shanmeng's expression stiffened for a moment, but it soon returned to normal. She revealed a smile and spoke softly. Fellow cultivator Wang, is funny. Since you're confident, you can study this ship. This little one will wait on the side. Although she said this, she sneered in her heart. She didn't believe Wang Lin was qualified. Fellow cultivator seems a bit unhappy, but you can relax. Even if I comprehend all the restrictions and take control, I want to keep it. I will return it to you. Wang Lin spoke slowly while maintaining a smile that wasn't a smile. Fan Shanmeng calmly looked at Wang Lin and smiled. Fellow cultivator is that confident? That's fine as well. If you re that confident in understanding the restrictions on this ship, then there is no problem in gifting this ship to you. However, if you can then let us not waste any more time. Let us exchange the oath of blood and I'll send you to safety. No problem. Let me look at it first. If I can succeed, then I'll naturally give up. Wang Lin was waiting for this. He looked calm and didn't even look at Fan Shanmeng. He sat down and his divine sense slowly reached out and he began studying the deck. There was a hidden sense of coldness in Fan Shanmeng's eyes. She had to obtain Wang Lin's oath of blood. With it, she could get her teacher to help her and use a strange spell which she was confident could turn Wang Lin into her puppet. He would be an important piece to killing the seven-colored celestial sovereign. Although he is extremely cautious, I don't believe he can take control of the soul devil ship. He may have some understanding of restrictions, but he is, after all, merely an ant of the cave world. How could an ant like him comprehend the restrictions from the immortal astral continent? This matter is simply ridiculous. I want to see how he tries to study them. After he fails, if he still wants to give me his blood of oath, I have other ways of dealing with him. There was coldness hidden in Fan Shanmeng's eyes, but she revealed a gentle smile on the surface as she looked at Wang Lin. As Wang Lin's divine sense spread out, the ancient god stars between his eyebrows appeared, forming a vortex. The demon and devil stars in his left and right eyes also appeared. The power of the three ancient clans fused to form Ancient One power. A shadow of the Ancient One suddenly appeared around Wang Lin. The ancient shadow immediately shrouded Wang Lin and also sat there. If you look from afar, it was a shocking sight. The Ancient One shadow had its size changed. The one around Wang Lin now was only a few 100 feet tall. However, it still looked like a small hill and completely protected Wang Lin. This scene caused Fan Shanmeng to frown. This person is a bit too careful. Only with the ancient power protecting his entire body did Wang Lin relax, and his divine sense calmly extended into the deck. Just as his divine sense entered, a rejection force came from the deck, preventing his divine sense from going further. This invisible force was formed by the restriction of the deck. It allowed Wang Lin to look at it from the outside, but not see the internal structure of the deck. Fan Shanmeng sneered in her heart. This soul-searching ship was her great soul sect's treasure, so she understood it well. Without a profound understanding of restrictions, just the rejection force is enough. Just as she was thinking this in her mind, she was startled and stared at Wang Lin. Wang Lin waved his right hand inside the Ancient One shadow. Tens, hundreds, thousands in the blink of an eye, nearly 1 million handprints appeared before him. These restriction handprints overlapped and gave off a ghostly flow. In an instant, the 1 million handprints fused into one, and Wang Lin's hand hit the deck. This hit caused the deck to tremble, and even the entire ship trembled a few times. A ripple spread from Wang Lin's hand and swept past Fan Shanmeng. It spread across nearly 30% of the deck. After the ripple spread, the deck was different in Wang Lin's eyes. It was as if the veil covering the source had been removed. This ship didn't have a deck at all. It was formed by restrictions that were condensed together. Those restrictions were all completely different and were densely packed together. They gave off a ghostly light. He broke the protection on the restrictions on the deck. He doesn't just simply know some restrictions. His mastery of restrictions is extremely high. Fan Shanmeng took a deep breath and her gaze toward Wang Lin immediately changed. No wonder he is so confident, but so what if his restriction mastery is extraordinary? The restrictions that exist in this cave world are merely a part of those that exist in the immortal astral continent. In just 3 short days, he could never take full control. Fan Shanmong silently pondered and sneered. Wang Lin's expression remained calm, and he pointed at one of the restrictions. Deduction began to flash through his eyes. This deck is only the perimeter of this ship, but it contains tens of thousands of restrictions. 3 days of time is indeed a bit hasty. These past few days I've always been prodding myself to wish for likes on the VIDEO, but I always forget now there are only the last 12 hours left to double the likes for the VIDEO. The hope of likes. Brothers, don't hold back. Wang Lin calmed himself down and seemed to isolate himself from the sounds coming from outside. He seemed to immerse himself on the restriction. Just at this moment it seemed as if there was a strange wind that blew by, causing the sail on the ship to flutter. The ghostly face on the sail revealed a demonic glow. This ghostly face seemed to be staring at Wang Lin and seemed to reveal a faint yet strange smile. It was as if it was alive. Wang Lin frowned and felt unease in his heart, making him unable to calm down. He looked up at the sail and met its gaze. A moment later, Wang Lin gradually calmed down. He lowered his head and immersed himself in the restrictions. The restrictions below Wang Lin gradually shined and spread outward. Ripples echoed across the entire deck and went even further away. Among the 4 great restrictions, I know the annihilation restriction the best. I am decent with the life and death restriction and the time restriction. I have the least experience with the ancient soul restriction, as I have only seen that turtle beast in the fallen land use it. However, many of the restrictions on the deck are ancient soul restrictions. Wang Lin continued to deduce as he pondered. His right hand formed a restriction seal. This seal was a miniature ancient soul restriction. A faint roar came from inside and Wang Lin could vaguely see a huge python within. The python gave off a powerful killing intent and continued to roar at Wang Lin. It was as if it wanted to rush out from the restriction and devour Wang Lin. Time slowly passed. In the blink of an eye, 3 hours had gone by. The thunderous rumbles outside continued on violently, and faint, 7-colored light seemed to penetrate through the barrier, shining on the deck. Fan Shanmeng's eyes gradually became colder. As she stared at Wang Lin, the shock from before had gradually subsided. She could see that Wang Lin had entered a bottleneck, as he hadn't moved for 3 hours. How can this soul devil ship be so easy? Earlier, when he opened the restriction protecting the deck, it was already his limit. It is futile to try to unravel the mysteries of this ship. Wang Lin, you read too arrogant. Fan Shanmeng remained calm and didn't reveal any of the contempt in her heart. Fellow cultivator Wang Lin, it has been 3 hours. If you go to the altar now, there might still be time. Fan Shanmeng's words echoed with a hint of worry. Wang Lin acted as if he hadn't heard it. His fingers still touched the restriction, and the deduction in his eyes became even faster. Ancient soul restriction with the soul as the core. Fuse it into the restriction so that it could be ever-changing like a living being. The stronger the soul, the stronger the seal. This restriction is not hard. At the 5th hour, Wang Lin suddenly closed his eyes and sharply pointed at the restriction. The restriction suddenly collapsed, and the phantom of a python appeared. However, before it could move, Wang Lin grabbed it and crushed it. However, it didn't dissipate. Wang Lin formed a seal, and the black gas turned back into a restriction. It flew back to its original location. This is the first one. Wang Lin opened his eyes and looked at the restriction he had studied and taken full control of. His gaze was calm, and he looked at Fan Shanmeng. No rush. There is still enough time. Reveal character. Fan Shanmeng frowned. Although Wang Lin had broken one restriction, this deck contained an unimaginable amount of restrictions. This was merely the periphery. There were still the inner restrictions. 5 hours to break one. At this speed, I fear fellow cultivator could only break a dozen or so in 3 days. Just as Fan Shanmeng spoke, popping sound echoed around Wang Lin. She was gobsmacked as she watched 9 restrictions collapse with a wave of Wang Lin's hand. They all collapsed into black gas, and then reformed back into restrictions that returned to their original positions. This Fan Shanmeng took a deep breath. However, before she could finish inhaling, her eyes widened and was filled with disbelief. Wang Lin waved his right hand again and thunderous rumbles echoed. The restrictions that formed the deck all collapsed. Dozens, hundreds, thousands, and even tens of thousands of restrictions all collapsed into black gas, forming a storm. After just a few short breaths, There were no restrictions remaining within a few thousand feet of Wang Lin. The storm eventually split back into restrictions and returned to their original positions. Fan Shanmeng's shock had just begun. I have embarrassed myself before fellow cultivator. Wang Lin revealed a faint smile. Fan Shanmeng took a deep breath and forced out a smile. She nodded. Fellow cultivator's comprehension of restrictions is indeed extraordinary. However, there are tens of millions of restrictions on this deck, and fellow cultivator has only comprehended 1% of them. It is rare, but... Wang Lin raised his right hand with the annihilation restriction in his hand, and his eyes lit up. This caused Fan Shanmeng to stop talking. Wang Lin waved his hand and the annihilation restriction spread across the deck. Thunderous rumbles echoed and all the annihilation restrictions on this deck trembled and collapsed. Out of the tens of millions of restrictions here, millions were annihilation restrictions. They all collapsed and the Soul Devil ship trembled violently. At the same time, the life and death restriction and the time restriction appeared in Wang Lin's right hand. He swept across the entire deck, and in less than 15 minutes, countless restrictions collapsed. Black gas filled the air. The black gas filled the area. Even the eyes of the seven-colored Taoist outside narrowed, and he took a closer look. There was no need to even talk about Fan Shanmeng, who had her vision blocked by the black gas. She stared at all of this, and her mind went blank. 5 hours? How can this be? Although the restrictions on the deck are only the outer layer, it is impossible for it to be completely solved in just 5 hours. He also didn't simply just resolve them. He completely took control. This. Thunderous rumbles echoed as the black gas all dissipated and turned back to restrictions. Now, more than half of the tens of millions of restrictions on the deck belonged to Wang Lin. Wang Lin's eyes shined brightly. He raised his right hand and 4 restrictions floated over his palm. These 4 restrictions were all different. They were the 4 great restrictions. Breaking the restrictions on the deck was not difficult for Wang Lin, but he wanted to learn the ancient soul restriction. Wang Lin had spent those 5 hours studying only one restriction, and comprehending that restriction was the same as comprehending the ancient soul restriction. Instant create! After all, Wang Lin wasn't ignorant about the ancient soul restriction, as he had studied the ancient soul restriction he had obtained from the fallen land. However, although it looked complete, it still had defects. It was those defects that obstructed his enlightenment. However, the ancient soul restriction on the deck was different. It was complete. The current Wang Lin was no longer the youth on the restriction mountain who had only studied restrictions for a few years. The current Wang Lin was a mid-stage spirit void cultivator, and with his comprehension and understanding of restrictions, 5 hours was enough to see through everything. Wang Lin stood up and waved his hand. Thunderous rumbles echoed, and the remaining restrictions on the deck all collapsed. These included ancient soul restrictions and other mysterious restrictions Wang Lin had never seen before. He didn't have time to comprehend all those restrictions he had never seen before. He only looked at them briefly and memorized them before destroying them by force. This method might make the strength of the restrictions on the deck to become weaker, but it would allow Wang Lin to create an opening on the Soul Devil ship in a short period of time. After thunderous rumbles echoed, Wang Lin took control of all the restrictions on the deck before Fan Shanmeng's shocked gaze. Wang Lin was now the owner of the deck. His eyes revealed a strange light as he looked at Fan Shanmeng. This ship has 9 layers. This deck is the first layer, and there are 8 more below. Fellow cultivator, you said that if I break the restrictions on this ship, you will gift it to me? Fan Shanmeng's expression turned pale. When the first layer of the Soul Devil ship was broken, she found that her control over the ship had been taken away. Now it was as if this treasure had 2 owners. She could have never imagined such a shocking change could occur in just 5 hours. Seeing that she didn't respond, Wang Lin shook his head with a smile. His body flickered and disappeared. When he reappeared, he was on the 2nd layer of the Soul Devil ship. Staring at where Wang Lin disappeared, there was a hint of coldness in Fan Shanmeng's eyes. So what if he broke through 1 layer? The restrictions on the ship become even more difficult the deeper one goes. I don't believe a mere ant cultivator like him could control this devil soul ship. Time passed. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. In the blink of an eye, it had been 7 hours. A full day of time passed by in the blink of an eye. The 7-colored light outside had become even more glaring, and the Soul Devil boat shook even more intensely. A majority of the outer barrier had been broken by the 7-colored Taoist. Just as the 7th hour passed, a shocking aura came from the 2nd layer. the Soul Devil ship trembled violently. Impossible. Fan Shanmeng stood up. The shock in her eyes could not be hidden by any light. A portion of her control over the ship had been taken. Before, she was unable to come here with her body and could only use 30% of the ship's power. Now that Wang Lin had taken even more control away, she only had a bit more control than him. Start creating now. 5,000 words in a major chapter. Seizing the moment when brothers and sisters feel comfortable, Lio wishes for the like button for the video, for sharing, for channel follows without hesitation. Once Wang Lin broke the third layer of restrictions, this ship would be completely under his control. This was the guest becomes the host. There was coldness in Fan Shanmeng's eyes and her eyes lit up. She pointed outside at the protective layers of the ship and they suddenly dimmed. At this instant, Fan Shanmeng sank through the first deck and entered the second layer. The moment she entered, the seven-colored light shrouded the entire Soul Devil ship. The seven-colored Taoist landed on the deck. The moment the seven-colored Taoist landed, Wang Lin, who was on the third layer, suddenly opened his eyes and looked up. He was calm and a golden light flashed in his eyes. She indeed did this, Wang Lin sneered. After Fan Shanmeng's scheme had been broken by him and the hidden danger could no longer be a threat, she would naturally chose to borrow seven-colored Taoist's power to suppress him. At this moment, the first deck the seven-colored Taoist was on was under Wang Lin's control. As a result, they would indirectly face each other. He had to allocate some effort to control the first deck to prevent the seven-colored Taoist from entering. Playing with fire I can as well. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. His hands formed a seal and then he waved it. The restrictions on the first deck suddenly rumbled and all the restrictions stopped moving. They completely calmed down. The moment the restrictions on the first deck calmed down, the seven-colored light penetrated the first layer with a bang. The seven-colored Taoist laughed as he entered the second layer without any effort. At this moment, Fan Shanmeng had already entered the third layer, and her expression changed greatly. She became aware of Wang Lin's action and she immediately arrived next to him. What are you doing? Could it be that you want to die? Even if we join forces, we are no match for the first soul. You actually opened the first layer to let him in. There was a flash of coldness in Wang Lin's eyes, and he calmly said, if you continue to be noisy, I'll open the second layer and let him come down. You! Fan Shanmeng stared at Wang Lin and killing intent appeared in her eyes. Since you can open the barrier around the ship and save him all this effort, why can I open the first layer and allow him to head straight to the second layer? There is no deep hatred between me and him. If he wants the Li Guangbao, then I just give it to him, but you not the same. If you want to remain safe, then shut up for me. Wang Lin's voice rumbled, causing Fan Shanmeng's face to immediately turn pale. Not only will you shut up, but stop making small moves. If you continue to be stubborn, then don't blame me for opening the second layer and allowing the seven-colored Taoist to come down here. Wang Lin coldly looked at her. His gaze caused a sense of chilliness to appear in Fan Shanmeng's heart. She suddenly realized that Wang Lin was actually this terrifying and cunning. He took back the initiative that was in my hands one step at a time until he gained the advantage. I am now being suppressed by him. This person's cunning is far too deep. Fan Shanmeng silently pondered. She felt deep dread toward this cave world cultivator she originally held contempt for. To be this cunning at this age. If he was someone on the immortal astral continent, he would certainly be famous. Wang Lin looked at Fan Shanmeng for a moment and then withdrew his gaze. At this moment, the rumbles from the second layer rang out loudly. The second layer flashed seven-colored light to resist, but it seemed it wouldn't last long before collapsing. If you don't want to die, then you should do your best to buy me time to break open the third layer. I know you still have some ace to keep yourself safe. However, you and I hold equal control over this ship right now. If I don't cooperate, you can leave. Wang Lin spoke slowly and then closed his eyes. The Ancient One's shadow appeared around him, and he immersed himself in studying the restrictions on the third layer. Fan Shanmeng's expression was extremely gloomy. She stared at Wang Lin for a long time and then slowly scratched her head. She felt fear in her heart toward what Wang Lin had said, as everything he had said was true. She indeed had her last resort, and it was because of this that she was very calm when she borrowed the seven-colored Taoist's power to suppress Wang Lin. However, she didn't think that Wang Lin could take control of two layers of the ship and match her in terms of control. Now, if she wanted to use her ace, she did need Wang Lin's cooperation. Fan Shanmeng clenched her teeth and said, "What is your plan? Even if I hold him off, I can buy enough time for you to break the remaining layers in time. If you give up control now, we can still leave. If you remain stubborn, then we will really die." Just as she finished speaking, a thunderous rumble echoed. The deck above began to collapse on a wide scale. About 30% of the restrictions were destroyed. "I need 3 hours." Wang Lin opened his eyes and looked at Fan Shanmeng. "You!" Fan Shanmeng revealed an angry smile, and a moment later, she fiercely turned around. Her hands formed a seal and 7-colored light came from the second layer. Wang Lin calmed his heart. He originally wouldn't treat these two sisters like this, but they had schemed against him first. Wang Lin had always followed the rules of not offending others if they didn't offend him. Now that he held the initiative, he naturally wouldn't easily let it go. Also, the restrictions here had been of great use to him. After breaking through 2 layers, Wang Lin's 4 great restrictions had reached completion. He only needed a bit more to fuse them to create an essence. A majority of the restrictions on the 3rd layer were ones Wang Lin had not seen before. As he studied them, his understanding of restrictions increased by leaps and bounds. Time slowly passed. The thunderous rumbles from the 2nd layer continued to echo. Cracking sounds spread, and the 2nd layer completely collapsed. Fan Shanmeng's body trembled, and she coughed out blood. After she took a few steps back, the 7-colored light quickly spread from the collapsed 2nd layer. Just at this moment, Wang Lin suddenly opened his eyes. His hands formed a seal and he waved upward. All the restrictions on the 3rd layer formed a net and flew up. Shortly after, Wang Lin's body sank down from the 3rd layer to the 4th layer. The moment he entered the 4th layer, Fan Shanmeng followed. There was a large amount of fog in the 4th layer of the Soul Devil ship. This fog hindered one's divine sense and vision. He is breaking through the 2nd layer. Even if I attempt to stop him, stalling him for 2 hours is the limit. Even if you comprehend the 3rd layer, he will only need 1 hour to break it. Wang Lin, what exactly do you want? I admit I schemed against you, but it was for our common purpose. Although you will hand your oath of blood to me, I'll also hand my oath of blood to you. It's not like I could harm you. Now that we have reached this point, we should exchange our oaths of blood, and you should give up your control of the ship. Perhaps that way we will have a fighting chance. Fan Shanmeng looked anxious and looked at Wang Lin, who was on the 4th layer. Wang Lin also looked at Fan Shanmeng, and after a long time, he suddenly laughed. You still trying to lie to me at this moment. I lied to you. Fan Shanmeng's eyes revealed pain. She looked up at the 3rd layer above and a thin crack appeared. Wang Lin let out a sigh. He didn't seem to care about the cracks that had appeared above him. He looked at her and slowly said, You are not Fan Shanmeng. What is your meaning? Her expression suddenly became calm as she stared at Wang Lin. You Ray Fan Shanlu. In fact, from the moment I entered the boat, you have been scheming against me. Perhaps if I had handed over the oath of blood, none of these things would have happened. However, you worried that I want handed over, so you coughed out that mouthful of blood. You used a method unknown to me to change your appearance and aura to make me think you Fan Shanmeng. Because of this misunderstanding, you told me the secret of this cave world so I would believe you are Fan Shanmeng. Then, when I was breaking the layers of restrictions, while some of your reactions were real, some are also fake. I hadn't figured it out before, but now I understand. Wang Lin slowly spoke as he looked at the woman. At this moment, a thunderous rumble came from the 3rd layer. Cracks appeared along with 7-colored light, as if everything was about to collapse. Have you gone crazy? I don't understand anything you say. The woman frowned. Don't understand everything here is fake. The 2nd layer, the 3rd layer, the 4th layer, all of it is fake. You are fake. 7-colored may be real, but the one on this ship is fake. This is clearly a world of illusion. What a realistic world of illusion. I, Wang Lin, have encountered similar spells before, but I have never encountered one so terrifyingly real. The woman looked startled for a moment. Then she revealed a bitter smile and retreated a few steps. She revealed a look of disbelief as she looked at Wang Lin and spoke bitterly. Fake? Wang Lin, have you really gone crazy? If you don't want to exchange oaths of blood, fine, but you say everything is fake. There was a flash of coldness in Wang Lin's eyes as he raised his right hand and smashed down toward the collapsing 3rd layer. This hit caused the third layer to collapse, and 7-colored light came through, shrouding the fourth layer. At the same time, the 7-colored Taoist S figure closed in. Waking up early today, not updating on time, even earlier. Leo went to deal with household chores, unsure what time I'll be back this afternoon. The new chapter tonight might be late. What are you doing? The woman's eyes widened, filled with shock. She quickly retreated more than a few thousand feet in the blink of an eye. Her hand formed a seal and 7-colored lights surrounded her body. 7 long swords appeared and rotated around her. A giant shadow appeared behind her. This was a 7-colored flower. It bloomed in a demonic way and gave off an alluring scent. Wang Lin's expression didn't change. He stood there motionlessly and looked at the 7-colored Taoist coming from the third layer. The 7-colored Taoist's expression was indifferent as he raised his right hand. A bright sun appeared in his hand. The sun wasn't big, only the size of his palm. However, the light and heat it gave off were like that of a real sun. Wang Lin's hair immediately began to burn and intense pain filled his body. The intense pain caused his expression to become twisted, as if his body was going to be melted by the sun. However, his gaze was still calm, without any change, allowing the sun to close in on him. In the distance, the woman was filled with disbelief and shock as the sun devoured Wang Lin. How did this happen? He is crazy. He is really crazy, however. At the next breath, the woman's eyes widened as she stared ahead and almost screamed. Wang Lin, who should have died in the sun, walked out. His hair wasn't burned at all, his clothes weren't damaged, and he didn't look tired. Instead, he looked calm. All of this is fake. Wang Lin closed his eyes and waved his right hand. The 7-colored light dissipated, the sun dissipated, the 7-colored Taoist dissipated, the fourth deck dissipated, the third and second layers of the deck dissipated. The last one to dissipate was the woman. Her face was filled with disbelief and confusion as she dissipated from this place. Wang Lin opened his eyes. The moment he opened his eyes, what he saw was the first deck of the Soul Devil ship. The sail fluttered on the mast and the ghostly face on the sail had a strange smile. Wang Lin was still sitting on the first deck and the Ancient One's shadow was still around him. Not far from him, the woman sitting there also opened her eyes, and her eyes were filled with a deep sense of confusion. It turns out you didn't even know everything was just an illusion. Wang Lin turned to look outside the boat. The layers of protection were still around the ship, and there was no sign of 7-colored light or the 7-colored Taoist. Even she was fake. Wang Lin silently stood up and waved his right hand. The Ancient One's shadow dissipated. He looked around before finally looking at the sail on the mast of the ship. What happened at this moment? The confusion in the woman's eyes dissipated as she stared at Wang Lin. Then she suddenly looked around. After she got a clear look at everything, her expression changed greatly. Great Soul True Illusion. This is Elder Sister S' strongest spell. In order to kill 7-colored, even I was shrouded in this spell. This woman was Fan Shanlu. She got up and staggered back a few steps before coughing out blood. The arrival of the 7-colored Taoist was fake. He may have really chased us here, but he didn't appear before us. Wang Lin's gaze was still locked onto the ghostly face on the sail. You two sisters are very interesting. You think everything is within your calculations. You brought me here with a threat from both light and dark to get me to hand over the oath of blood. Your elder sister is even more brilliant. The moment I entered here, she created a world of illusion. She created the 7-colored Taoist pursuing us to get us here. Then she even went behind your back. When I was preparing to study the restrictions, she created an illusion within an illusion so I couldn't see through it. In that illusion within an illusion, she almost forced me to hand over the oath of blood. Brilliant. I, Wang Lin, have encountered countless people in my life, and only one person has made me dread him in my heart. Now there is one more. That is your elder sister. Wang Lin remained calm. Even his words contained no emotions. Fan Shanlu's face was deathly pale and she carefully thought about everything that had happened. Her expression gradually became gloomy. She was certain what Wang Lin had said was true. She had indeed fallen to her elder sister's illusion. For your elder sister to have such powerful illusion spell, I am guessing the Great Soul Sect is famous for their illusion spells on the immortal astral continent. Illusions. Wang Lin took a deep breath. Fan Shanlu pondered for a moment and then spoke softly with a complicated gaze. The Great Soul Sect is indeed most famous for its illusion spells. Not everyone is qualified to learn it. My elder sister has the talent and has already cultivated to the point of double illusion. The illusion within illusion you spoke of before was the double illusion. One step further is triple illusion, and we wouldn't have been able to escape that. I believe that when you said your sister died to the seven-colored celestial sovereign and was then resurrected by your teacher, you lied. She didn't die, and it is likely that her illusion fooled the seven-colored celestial sovereign. It is even likely that what happened between those two wasn't as you said. However, I'm not interested in any of this. As Wang Lin spoke, he stepped forward and arrived next to the mast. His eyes became cold, and he tore down the sail. Treasure. At this moment, on the immortal astral continent, in a frozen mountain, the woman inside suddenly opened her eyes and coughed out blood. Her eyes were filled with shock. He actually broke my great soul true illusion. At the same time, in another part of this strange space where the ship was located, the seven-colored Taoist sat there among the corpses of many fierce beasts. His expression sometimes revealed pain and sometimes revealed excitement. This kind of strange expression rarely appeared on him. Even he had entered the illusion the moment he entered here. Or it was better to say that he had voluntarily entered it. Otherwise, even though his cultivation level was lower than Fan Shanmeng's, it wouldn't have been difficult to leave. However, only he knew why he was willing to enter the illusion and not wake up. Finally, the weekend is here, and Leo can finally sleep to his heart's content, not needing to get up early to take the daughter to school. Been burning the midnight oil these past few days, utterly exhausted. Wang Lin tore off the ghostly face sail. He carefully looked at the ghostly face, and the ghostly face seemed to be staring back at him. The reason Fan Shanmeng was able to use her great soul true illusion and reach the level of double illusion while she was far away on the immortal astral continent was because of this sail. Wang Lin clearly remembered how he looked at the ghostly face before he ended the illusion within an illusion. After that, he was completely trapped until he broke the illusion, and when he opened his eyes, he was still looking at the ghostly face. It seemed as if everything in that illusion had happened the instant Wang Lin looked at the ghostly face. On the side, Fan Shanlu pondered silently for a moment, and then slowly said, "This is the treasure of my great soul sect, and also the main soul sail of the soul devil ship. I don't care about the matter between you two sisters. There is no need to exchange oaths of blood, as we share a common goal. If there's no hidden intent, then we can cooperate. However, your elder sister's behavior before was very interesting. Tell her that I'll be taking this ghostly sail and this soul devil ship as compensation for the unpleasantry that happened." Wang Lin waved his right hand and put away the sail into his storage space as he looked at Fan Shanlu. Fan Shanlu opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something, but in the end she remained silent. She silently stood there with a complicated expression in her eyes. "You don't need to leave this ship. I can leave this ship with you. When I need it, I'll call you to bring it to me. Is the ancient altar you spoke of when we were in the illusion in this ship?" Wang Lin spoke, and there was a hint of coldness in his eyes. Fan Shanlu pondered for a long time before shaking her head. She raised her hand, and a jade flew toward Wang Lin. He caught it, and saw there was a map inside. There are countless fierce beasts in the space here. This space was formed due to the battle that happened in the cave. Somehow, it connected to a strange world. If you follow the map, you will see an ancient altar. This jade also contains a spell. This is the spell I spoke of in the illusion that can devour the third soul. You should study it well. Fan Shanlu spoke softly as she looked into the distance. Her gaze contained a hint of homesickness. Wang Lin pondered for a moment, and then clasped his hands at Fan Shanlu. Just as he was about to leave, Fan Shanlu's quiet words echoed. "My elder sister is so desperate for revenge that even I was used. We can cooperate, and I'll do my best to help you. I only have one request. When you open the gate to the immortal astral continent, take me with you. I want to go home. It is very difficult to open this cave. Only the third soul has the memory and knows where the heavenly Tao is. Only by summoning the heavenly Tao can you enter the seven-colored celestial sovereign's celestial palace. The celestial palace was the location of the Great War from back then. Although it is in ruins, there is a door there that leads to the immortal astral continent. Opening that gate means opening up the cave." Wang Lin stopped. After pondering for a bit, He turned to look at the bleak Fan Shanlu and nodded. I promise you. Wang Lin rarely made promises. This was his first promise since he reached the third step. It wasn't tea for any benefit. It had nothing to do with trust or anything. It was only because of what she had said. I want to go home. Fan Shanlu bit her lower lip and looked at Wang Lin. After hearing Wang Lin's words, she nodded and bit the tip of her tongue. She spat out a ball of blood that was scarlet red, but soon turned golden as it flew toward Wang Li. This is my oath of blood. Wang Lin caught that pale golden blood and put it inside his body. He didn't turn around and left. Wang Lin no longer needed to study the restrictions on the ship. The world inside the double illusion was the same as the real world. All the knowledge Wang Lin had gained inside the illusion stayed with him. Just like how Fan Shanlu was injured in the illusion and still had the same injuries after the illusion broke. The Great Soul Sect's spells were indeed strange and unfathomable. That ghost face sail is the main sail for the Soul Devil ship. The sail is not simply that ghostly face, it also contains many restrictions. These restrictions include everything about the Soul Devil ship. If I refine this sail, not only can I master more restrictions, but I can also use it to control the ship. Wang Lin's divine sense entered his storage space and slowly refined the sail. As he refined, he gradually learned more about how to control the ship. As time passed, he would eventually gain full control over the ship. A moment later, Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he no longer thought about the sail. He raised his hand and touched the spot between his eyebrows. Yimo's child died by my hand, and I absorbed 8 drops of ancient blood. If I can fuse with them, it will make my ancient one body even stronger. Right now, I must go look at the altar. Perhaps I'll find some luck there. Although I am at the spirit void stage, I am still lacking compared to the arcane void cultivators. Now that the ancient celestial realm has opened and the 4 generals have appeared, their goal should be to search for the third soul that will save me a lot of trouble. And this is the perfect time to raise my cultivation level. Wang Lin pondered as he moved faster and faster. His divine sense spread out to carefully observe his surroundings. The sky was completely dark and the auras of fierce beasts lingered everywhere. These beasts were not a threat to Wang Lin. They would retreat in fear the moment his divine sense swept by. In this foreign space, Wang Lin was very wary. Although the surrounding beasts were no threat to him, there was one thing he was uncertain of, whether or not the 7-colored Taoist had come here. Although his divine sense was spread out, he was completely focused. If anything abnormal happened, he would escape. This was very dangerous, but he had to go to the altar. If he became too scared to move around due to one uncertainty, then he wouldn't have been able to reach the cultivation level he had today. After several hours, Wang Lin suddenly stopped, and his expression changed. Without hesitation, he rapidly retreated and was about to disappear. However, just as he was about to disappear, he exclaimed and stared straight ahead. His expression was constantly changing. His divine sense saw a figure sitting there, motionless, hundreds of thousands of kilometers away, sitting among the corpses of countless fierce beasts. The figure's expression was sometimes complicated, sometimes confused, sometimes resentful, and sometimes excited. He was the 7-colored Taoist. After pondering for a while, Wang Lin's eyes lit up. The 7-colored Taoist looked extremely strange, but after pondering for a bit, Wang Lin realized that he seemed to be trapped in an illusion. This is likely Fan Shanmeng's illusion. Even the 7-colored Taoist is trapped. With his cultivation level, this illusion, this matter, something is wrong with this. Wang Lin was extremely smart, and after pondering a bit, he immediately realized the problem. Wang Lin's heart started pounding, and a rare struggle appeared in his heart. On one hand, he should immediately leave. In his current state, the 7-colored Taoist wouldn't chase after Wang Lin. Due to this, Wang Lin's trip to the altar would be without danger. On the other hand, Wang Lin felt like this was an opportunity. If he could enter 7-colored's illusion, then he would be able to uncover some secrets. He felt that Fan Shanmeng's cultivation level wasn't high enough to trap the 7-colored Taoist. There had to be some other reason. He faintly felt that if he gave up this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, he would definitely regret it in the future. After struggling for 7 to 8 minutes, there was a flash of coldness in Wang Lin's eyes. Seek wealth in danger. Wang Lin moved forward with full caution and his figure disappeared. When he reappeared, He was 100,000 feet away from the seven-colored Taoist. There was a large amount of fierce beast corpses in the area. Wang Lin stood on one and looked down at it. His eyes slowly began to glow. These fierce beasts haven't been dead for long. Wang Lin looked at seven-colored in the distance. He raised his right hand and the corpse of a beast that was about 100 feet large floated upward. Wang Lin waved his hand, and the corpse flew toward the seven-colored Taoist. Wang Lin leaned slightly backwards as he stared at the corpse as it flew within 1,000 feet of the seven-colored Taoist. However, just as the corpse got within 1,000 feet, the seven-colored light behind the seven-colored Taoist shined. Then the corpse silently disappeared before Wang Lin. There was no flesh or blood, no pieces left. It had disappeared completely. Sure enough, Wang Lin silently pondered and cautiously walked forward. He was not fast, and his heart pounded as he walked forward. He crossed the 100,000 feet distance and stopped 1,000 feet away from the seven-colored Taoist, where the corpse disappeared. After pondering for a moment, Wang Lin clenched his teeth and sat down. His right hand pointed to the spot between his eyebrows and seemed to reach deep into his soul. Wang Lin's vision became blurry as he pulled out his right hand and pointed at the seven-colored Taoist. May my dream enter your illusion, dream Tao. Wang Lin's finger pointed, and he trembled. Blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. The blur in his vision disappeared, and he remained sitting, and nothing had changed. The dream Tao spell didn't require direct physical contact, but the seven-colored Taoist had a high cultivation level and a barrier around him. So Wang Lin wasn't able to enter his illusion with the dream Tao. Wang Lin frowned, revealing a reluctant expression. Day in, day out, nearing 3,000 words, reading a lot, but can't stop, can't force myself to split the story into 2,000 words chapters, because then the flavor is gone. Leo with tears in his eyes, longing for the like button for the video. Waves of aura of that could make all life tremble spread out from the seven-colored Taoist. As it spread out, the fierce beast would retreat in panic before they could even get close. This aura frightened them greatly. This aura was even stronger than the heaven's might. No life dared to come near it. It was powerful enough to make heaven and earth to tremble in fear from its might. The reason there were so many fierce beast corpses around the seven-colored Taoist was likely because they had been killed before he entered the illusion. Wang Lin was a bold man. At this moment, his eyes narrowed. After pondering a bit, he bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood. This blood turned into a total of 99 drops. Each drop contained the aura of his cultivation. His eyes became serious as he waved his sleeves and one drop flew out, floating before his forehead. Immortal ancient, as Wang Lin muttered, all his ancient power surged and gathered on this drop of blood along with a sliver of his origin soul. The drop of blood immediately became crystal clear. It now looked like a crystal. After being fused with Wang Lin's ancient power, this drop of blood gave off a bright red glow. Wang Lin let out a breath and the drop of blood flew forward. The remaining 98 drops surrounded it, forming a halo of blood. Under the protection of the halo, it flew within 1,000 feet of the seven-colored Taoist. The moment it came within 1,000 feet of him, the blood halo formed by 98 drops of blood silently disintegrated, leaving only the drop filled with ancient power. However, they had resisted the first wave of destruction for that drop of blood. This drop of blood instantly flew hundreds of feet. During this time, it was destroyed tens of thousands of times, but it immediately recovered due to the ancient power. In an instant, this drop of blood was within 100 feet of the seven-colored Taoist. Once it reached this point, the ancient power recovery wasn't able to keep up. The drop of blood rapidly dissipated until only a sliver remained. This sliver of blood could still be seen by the naked eye, but if one wasn't careful, it would be easy to miss. This sliver contained a part of Wang Lin's origin soul, so the constant destruction sent pain that made Wang Lin's expression become twisted. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. The moment the trace of blood was destroyed, it penetrated the last 100 feet and landed between the seven-colored Taoist's eyebrows. The moment the blood dissipated, the strand of origin soul inside touched the seven-colored Taoist's body. 1,000 feet away, Wang Lin closed his eyes and let out a soft murmur. Dream Tao. With these two words, Wang Lin's mind trembled and everything in his mind collapsed. As it all collapsed, a seven-colored light appeared and took his mind, causing it to sink into the endless abyss. This was a world of 7 colors. The sky was 7-colored, the earth was 7-colored, and even the clouds were 7-colored. There were many mountains on the earth, and Wang Lin appeared standing on the peak of a mountain. After a brief moment of confusion, he immediately looked around. This is the illusion the 7-colored Taoist is in. Wang Lin carefully spread out his divine sense as he silently pondered. He flew forward and the pieces of the earth flashed by. After an unknown amount of time, Wang Lin suddenly stopped and looked ahead. He saw a person sitting on the mountain head. This person was the 7-colored Taoist. He was sitting there with his eyes opened. He was looking at the sky, and his expression seemed somewhat dull. Around his body floated 9 fist-sized balls of light that were like flames. These were the 9 firebirds, or suns. They were the 7-colored Taoist's cultivation and treasure. Shan Meng, I remember. Your name is Fan Shan Meng, the 7-colored Taoist muttered. Wang Lin looked at the 7-colored Taoist in the distance and revealed a strange expression. He had heard what the 7-colored Taoist had said, but the 7-colored Taoist doesn't seem to notice him. After pondering for a moment, Wang Lin's eyes lit up. Could it be an illusion within an illusion? A moment later, Wang Lin carefully stepped toward the 7-colored Taoist. He soon arrived under the mountain and was 1,000 feet from the 7-colored Taoist. Staring at the 7-colored Taoist, Wang Lin's eyes revealed a decisive gaze. His right hand reached out and took out the ghostly face sail from his storage space. Although he didn't know what it did and hadn't refined it completely, he had fused his divine sense into it. After taking out the sail, Wang Lin sat down and waved it. The moment Wang Lin controlled it, the sail wrapped around his body and flew forward with his origin soul. Wang Lin's origin soul left his body and entered the sail. The sail seemed to break through the void and rush toward the 7-colored Taoist. The sail opened up in the sky, and the ghostly face gradually turned into Wang Lin's face, and the 7-colored Taoist looked at it with his dazed eyes. At this instant, Wang Lin's vision suddenly darkened. The 7-colored Taoist's eyes were like black holes, and immediately pulled him in. Enter! Wang Lin sent out an order when a thunderous rumble followed by a familiar mad laughter entered his ears. The darkness before him seemed to be ripped open by some strange force, and what happened before him was a place filled with collapsed pagodas. With all the ruins of the towering pagodas, it looked like a sect. That familiar laughter belonged to a middle-aged man with long hair wearing a gray robe. This middle-aged man was handsome and his eyes were cold. He exuded a sense of pride that could be felt by everyone from the bottom of their hearts. At this moment, he raised his right hand. There was a giant pagoda before him. Just as he was about to break the pagoda, it collapsed and 7-colored light flashed from within. An angry person walked out. When Wang Lin took a look at this person, he took a deep breath. This person was exactly the same as the statue in Wang Lin's storage space. He was the 7-colored celestial sovereign. Although the middle-aged man's appearance was unfamiliar, his laughter and voice shocked Wang Lin. Wang Lin recognized that he was the madman. There was a scarlet-red dragon floating behind the madman. It let out an arrogant roar. Next to the madman was a bald teenager wearing a coat. The bald teenager's body looked thin, and at this moment he had a ferocious expression as he fought someone. Wang Lin recognized the person the teenager was fighting. It was the Azure Dragon General. Looking around, this place was a battleground, and it was extremely chaotic. 3 of the 4 generals were present, and the 8 concubines were here too. Thunderous rumbles echoed, and the earth collapsed. Large amounts of fragments collapsed, and countless spatial rifts appeared in the sky. Gusts of cold wind flew out, freezing the land. Watching all of this, Wang Lin was shocked. After a moment of being shocked, the madman and the 7-colored celestial sovereign collided, causing a thunderous rumble. The 7-colored celestial sovereign was knocked back and coughed out blood. His face was filled with pain and madness as he let out a violent roar. Fan Shan Meng, Fan Shan Lu, why did you 2 betray me? Was I not good to you? Why? Was it just because I obtained that fragment that you forgot the tens of thousands of years we spent together? Fan Shamang, come out! You sneak attacked me during the journey back, but I allowed you to leave and didn't kill you. Do you know how much it pained my heart? Do you know? Now you have led an outsider to come and kill me, you bitch! And you, Lian Daofei, you have a noble status and countless Dao partners beside you. You took a fancy to that bitch years ago. Do you think I didn't know? The 7-colored celestial sovereign roared. his eyes filled with madness. The madman, or to be more accurate, Lian Daofei, looked extremely proud. After hearing this, he shook his head and revealed a smile, saying, "It was her who seduced this king, but this king has no interest in someone else's Dao partner. I only came for the fragment. Hand over the fragment and I'll leave. I want to get involved in the affair between you two." "Fragment? Today, none of you here can leave." The seven-colored celestial sovereign's eyes were red and he waved his sleeve. The world changed colors and a giant vortex appeared in the sky. A giant eye appeared inside the vortex. This eye had no emotion and was completely indifferent. It stared at everything below it and then slowly closed. The moment the eye closed, Lian Daofei's expression changed greatly. "Heavenly Dao. All of you, die for this lord." The seven-colored celestial sovereign waved his hand and the world trembled. Black gas spread out and covered Wang Lin's vision. Miserable screams echoed and a powerful aura that made Wang Lin tremble shrouded his mind. Lian Daofei was seriously injured inside this black gas and was devoured by the heavenly Dao. The seven-colored celestial sovereign's body collapsed and scattered. His scattered body split into 3 parts that flew in all directions. One part was the seven-colored Taoist, and the other was his essence. The last one carried all his memories, and it flew off into the distance. Just at this moment, the seven-colored Taoist that was the first soul flew off after the third soul. Wang Lin's mind suddenly became clear, and at this moment, he knew why the seven-colored Taoist was willing to be trapped inside the illusion and not leave. International Children's Day brings tears and wishing for the like button for the video. Such cunning and decisive action. Seven-colored Taoist Wang Lin was witnessing everything, and his mind was completely clear. He understood why the seven-colored Taoist was willing to be trapped in the illusion. Fan Shanmeng had lured the seven-colored Taoist into the illusion, and he had allowed her to bring him in. However, he had used his powerful cultivation to forcibly change the illusion to go back to the battle where the seven-colored celestial sovereign shattered. The one thing he wants the most is to find the third soul. However, even after all these years, he still couldn't find any clues about the third soul. He doesn't know where the third soul is hiding and who it is now. Thus he borrowed this illusion to return back to when the seven-colored celestial sovereign split into the 3 souls and 7 fragments. Then he is going to follow the third soul like he is doing now. He is going to see where it went to reincarnate. If he really sees where the third soul went, it could be a chance to find the third soul even if the illusion is fake. I can let him succeed. If he really does manage to see what happened, he might really find the third soul. Wang Lin, still surrounded by the ghostly face sail, charged forward. He was here with his origin soul, so he was much faster than usual. However, he still couldn't keep up with the seven-colored Taoist and the third soul. Those two disappeared before him, and Wang Lin spread out his divine soul but still couldn't find them. I can continue like this. I am too slow. There was a flash of coldness in Wang Lin's eyes. His right hand hit his body and he spat out a mouthful of essence energy. This essence energy was more precious than essence blood. His origin soul immediately weakened. His origin soul stepped forward and fused with the essence energy. His speed suddenly increased greatly and he rushed forward 100 times faster than before. In an instant, Wang Lin appeared far away, and a flash of 7-colored light appeared at the edge of his divine sense. Still need a bit more? Wang Lin clenched his teeth and spat out another mouthful of essence energy. His speed increased greatly once more. Sharp pain came from his origin soul as if he was going to be torn apart. He had reached the fast speed he could withstand. With this speed, Wang Lin finally caught up to the 7-colored Taoist with his divine sense. He also saw the light that was the third soul ahead of the 7-colored Taoist. The 7-colored Taoist frowned. He had, of course, noticed Wang Lin. He had changed this illusion by force, so he naturally knew someone else had entered. However, right now was a critical moment for him to find where the third soul had gone. This kind of chance was once in a lifetime. After all, no one in the cave world could use such a powerful illusion spell. He completely ignored Wang Lin and focused on locking onto the third soul. He wanted to see where the third soul would go. As long as he could find where it was going, he would be confident in finding the third soul after leaving this illusion. Time instantly passed by. Wang Lin coughed out a third mouthful of essence energy to barely keep up with the 7-colored Taoist. His origin soul seemed to be burning as he rushed forward. The star system before him seemed to blur and revealed a star map. This star map was like the whole cave condensed. Wang Lin immediately recognized it as a map of the entire cave world. There was still no realm ceiling formation separating the inner and outer realms. They were still whole. Wang Lin personally saw the third soul charge into the star map. Although it didn't head to the center, it was close to the center. If one carefully divided the map, it was clearly the inner realm. Inner realm. The third soul went to the inner realm. Wang Lin's eyes revealed a strange light and he disappeared in a flash. The seven-colored Taoist let out a roar, and his hand formed a seal. The star map began to expand rapidly, and the third soul that had disappeared was found once more. The third soul pierced through the current cloud sea and flew toward the summoned river. Perhaps it would stop in the summoned river, or it could pierce through to another star system. It wouldn't take long for Wang Lin to know where the third soul had gone to reincarnate. However, similarly, if Wang Lin could see it, the seven-colored Taoist could see it as well. The seven-colored Taoist was filled with excitement, although he didn't know if this was all real or if it was happening the same way it did in the past. This was a chance, the first chance he had over the countless years. If he finds the third soul, I'll without a doubt die. I must find it before him. If I can find it, then I can let anyone else find it. Wang Lin's eyes were cold and decisive. However, his cultivation level was far lower, so he could not stop this. Seeing the third soul seem to slow down and about to stop, the excitement in the seven-colored Taoist had reached a peak. At this moment, Wang Lin suddenly stopped, and his hand formed a seal. The ghostly face sail around his origin soul flashed, and his origin soul suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, the world was covered in seven-colored light. Wang Lin's body trembled, and he returned to the first illusion where the seven-colored Taoist sat filled with excitement. Wang Lin's origin soul was surrounded by the sail, and after looking around, his origin soul returned to his body in the first illusion. The moment he entered his body, he stood up and walked toward the seven-colored Taoist without hesitation. He was unable to stop the seven-colored Taoist in the second illusion, but he could return to the first illusion using the sail. He could awaken the seven-colored Taoist here and achieve his goal. Just as Wang Lin closed in on the seven-colored Taoist, the 9 firebirds suddenly opened their eyes. They emitted a powerful heat wave. This heat was not the power of fire, but light. The heat of light was countless times stronger than fire. As it shrouded Wang Lin, he felt like he was going to melt. His hair caught on fire and instantly dissipated. Wang Lin's body was filled with intense pain. He felt as if he would be turned to gas if he got a bit closer. I can get close. Wang Lin's face became pale and he became anxious. He didn't know what the seven-colored Taoist had seen inside the second illusion, but he knew that if he didn't have a method of stopping him, then he had to escape immediately. However, Wang Lin was unwilling to leave like this. He retreated a few steps and stared at the excited seven-colored Taoist that was surrounded by the 9 suns. How can I awaken him? How should I do it? How could I do it? Wang Lin's eyes shined brightly as various thoughts appeared in his mind. After several breaths, Wang Lin's eyes suddenly narrowed. Illusion. An illusionary world is like a dream. If I consider him to be sleeping, I just need to wake him up, then this problem has become a lot more simple. If he is asleep, I just need to wake him up. Wake him up. Wang Lin's eyes shined brightly and he waved his sleeve. His thunder and fire essence flew out, forming a fire vortex that gave off bolts of thunder. At the same time, Wang Lin formed a seal. His life and death essence, true and false essence, and karma essence all flew out. They fused into the vortex, making it even larger. In the end, the slaughter essence appeared. The moment it entered, the vortex rumbled and changed shapes due to Wang Lin's will. In the end, it took the shape of a horn. Wang Lin had used his 6 essences to form this horn that could amplify his voice. The essences rotating inside the horn could cause the sound that entered to increase countless fold. After doing all of this, Wang Lin activated all his 3 ancient clan powers to form ancient power. The shadow of an ancient one appeared behind him. The veins on Wang Lin's face swelled as he sucked in a breath. Then he let out a roar into the horn formed by his 6 essences. This was the roar of the ancient god of an ancient one. This was the roar Wang Lin had learned in the ancient tomb, the same one he had used against the sovereign. The sky collapsed and the earth trembled. Rifts were ripped open and the world changed colors. Countless spatial rifts were torn open between the Wang Lin and the seven-colored Taoist. A storm started to rage. This was also caused by Wang Lin's roar. And this was all before it was amplified by the horn formed by his 6 essences. Quickly approaching 30,900 words, Leo fierce as a tiger. Wishing for sharing, for likes on the video, for channel followers. You are listening to a completely free audiobook on the Leo Audio YouTube channel. If you enjoy the story, please like the video to motivate the channel. Support Leo with a cup of coffee through the description link or on the screen. If you want to hear any other stories, just comment and let Leo know. Thank you very much for watching the video. Wang Lin's roar turned into a storm and entered the horn formed by his 6 essences. After echoing inside for a while, the storm came out of the other end of the horn. The roar was already extremely powerful, and now it had been amplified countless fold. The first illusion began to disintegrate at a rapid pace. This roar formed an unimaginable sound and landed on the 9 suns around the 7-colored Taoist like a storm. The 9 suns showed signs of extinguishing, and the sound directly entered the 7-colored Taoist's ears. Inside the second illusion, the 7-colored Taoist was filled with excitement. Normally, this kind of excitement wouldn't arise within a cultivator like him, but he couldn't help it right now. He had waited for so long it could be said he had waited a lifetime. Today he had finally found a clue leading to the third soul through the power from the immortal astral continent. He didn't know if this was real or something he had imagined, but this was the first time he was so close to the third soul. In his gaze he saw the third soul penetrate the summoned river and head toward what would later be the brilliant void. His hand formed a seal as he wanted a closer look, but just at this moment a shocking change occurred. He heard a thunderous roar in his ears. At first it wasn't loud, but soon it increased greatly and became the only sound in the 7-colored Taoist's ears. Roar. Under this roar, everything before the 7-colored Taoist seemed to be torn apart by a powerful force. It seemed like it wanted to pull him out from this second illusion. The third soul that he could still see clearly disappeared before him. The star map before him blurred and collapsed. Not just the star map, but everything around him disintegrated. All of this happened too fast. This was his most excitement-filled moment, but just as he was about to see where the third soul had gone, everything disappeared. The 7-colored Taoist was startled. He couldn't stop this because it was someone in the first illusion waking him up. No. After being startled for a moment, he let out an extremely angry roar. This roar came from his mouth and also came from the mouth of the 7-colored Taoist in the first illusion. It collided with Wang Lin's roar and formed a destructive force. The horn formed by the 6 essences instantly shattered. Wang Lin coughed out blood, feeling like his whole body was going to shatter. At the same time, the 9 suns scattered and a powerful impact shot toward him. At this moment of danger, Wang Lin used his ancient immortal spell to recover. He waved his hand and the ghostly face sail surrounded him. The moment the impact got close, Wang Lin disappeared. 1,000 feet outside the 7-colored Taoist in the mysterious space filled with fierce beasts, Wang Lin opened his eyes. He coughed out blood and his eyes were dim, but he retreated without any hesitation. With one step, he disappeared without a trace. When he reappeared, he was extremely far away and coughed out another mouthful of blood. Wang Lin didn't even have time to heal before he escaped like crazy. The 7-colored Taoist sitting within the large amount of beast corpses suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were bloodshot and his expression was twisted. He stared straight ahead and let out a violent roar. Wang Lin, if I don't kill you, then I am not a person. This roar echoed across the star domain. The large amount of fierce beast corpses trembled. They turned to dust and scattered in all directions. The 7-colored Taoist chased after Wang Lin with monstrous killing intent. Wang Lin was very far but still heard that angry roar. His face was pale as he coughed out blood without hesitation and escaped using blood escape. Nonsense. Even if I hadn't destroyed his chance of finding the third soul, he still must have had ill intent for chasing after me all the way here. Although Wang Lin's eyes were bleak, he didn't regret his actions. This had to be done. If he hadn't destroyed the 7-colored Taoist's plan and had gone to the altar instead, he would merely be delaying his death. If everything inside that illusion was real, then once the 7-colored Taoist found the third soul, there would be no hope for the entire cave world. It would be under the full control of the new 7-colored celestial sovereign. At that time, Wang Lin could have no control over his own life. He absolutely wouldn't let something like this happen, so he had to destroy the seven-colored Taoist S-plan, even if the consequences pushed him infinitely close to death. At this moment, as he was fleeing, the space behind him trembled and he could feel the seven-colored Taoist chasing him. The seven-colored Taoist was extremely powerful and his divine sense could reach very far, so it would be extremely easy for him to find Wang Lin. Right now I can only head to the altar. Maybe the altar could resolve my danger. I hope so. Wang Lin had pondered for a bit before he decided to enter the seven-colored Taoist S-illusion. Not only had he weighed the possible gains versus the losses, he had also used the altar S-soul to divinate the future. He had found that the altar contained the path to survival. Fan Shan had said that this spatial rift in the cloud sea was opened during the battle, where Lian Daofei was devoured by the heavenly Tao, and the seven-colored celestial sovereign was shattered. She had also said that this place was connected to a mysterious space, which was why so many fierce beasts appeared. Deep within this spatial rift floated a giant altar. This altar was in ruins, but it didn't move, it stayed in one place. The altar was completely black, the same as the space around it. However, one corner gave off a gentle light. The reason the altar remained in place was because a corner of it seemed to be connected to another space. Ripples were echoing from the corner, causing it to linger for tens of thousands of years. The space it was connected to wasn't undamaged. There were several spatial rifts there as well. The light came from those rifts. It was as if a dart had pierced a piece of paper but got stuck. There would naturally be an opening where the dark penetrated the paper. Bursts of Ancient One aura were coming the altar, but it didn't spread too far. It seemed there was an invisible force preventing it from spreading out too far. This altar was like a small mountain and had 8 edges. There were layers of steps around it, and the center of the altar was a flat area about 1,000 feet wide. If you looked closely, you would see an ancient formation on the altar. At the center of the altar, there was an arm. The Ancient One aura was coming from this arm. However, this arm wasn't very large, only a few hundred feet long. It remained there, silent and motionless. Because of the spatial rift, a corner of the altar was stuck in another world. This other world was filled with flowers and birds, and the earth was covered in celestial grass. There were many small beasts playing, as if it was a celestial garden. Just at this moment, a miserable scream came from that space. This scream was filled with helplessness and pleading. Anyone who heard it would undoubtedly feel pity and sympathy. Little ancestors, please let me go. I really don't have any more stories to tell. Even if you give me more treasures, I have no stories left. After more than 100 years, my mouth is dry from speaking. I can stand it anymore. As the screams echoed, a human figure with a haggard face, dim eyes, and a painful expression struggled to come out of the spatial rift. There was clearly a barrier around the spatial rift, but it had no effect on this person. More than half of his body came out, revealing his appearance. Through the rift, one could see 2 little girls, around 7 or 8 years old, squatting behind this figure. Both of them were very cute. One was wearing a purple dress and the other a green dress. Han, how about we let him go? He looks very pitiful. The little girl in green looked like she couldn't bear to continue watching and looked at her companion. When the man heard those words, tears began to flow and panic filled his eyes. Wawa, he hasn't finished the story yet. Don't take pity on him. Remember how he threatened us when he came here? The little girl called Han, grabbed the man's leg, and dragged him back as he let out a mournful scream. Greed, quickly finish that story. You were just talking about the moon gazer serpent. Quickly tell the rest. That little girl called Wawa smiled as she looked at Greed. After thinking for a bit, she spoke. How about this? Tell us another 1,000 years of stories and I'll decide whether or not to let you go. Greed let out a howl and watched his body get dragged back to this terrifying place. When he heard Wawa's words, even more tears flowed out. I knew this would happen, you guys, it was the same last time. I really don't have any stories, I want to drink some water. Tears, streaming long, wishing for the like button for the video. Greed's eyes were filled with despair and his heart was filled with regret. He had encountered Wang Lin in the outer realm, and in the end, the stench on his body was removed. Originally, he let out a breath of relief. However, shortly after, he encountered the war between the inner and outer realms. This war made him extremely excited. Perhaps he could obtain even more treasures in this war, and his cultivation level would increase. Greed followed the Outer Realm army to the Cloud Sea and then secretly left. Following his sense for treasure, he found the spatial rift in the Cloud Sea and entered it. He was extremely excited because he realized that a powerful treasure aura was here. This aura made him laugh like crazy for almost 15 minutes. He believed his luck was great, and he might encounter a great fortune here. His cultivation level would increase, and he wouldn't have to be afraid of that Wang Lin anymore. He was going to steal all his treasures back. With these ambitions, Greed followed his treasure sense inside the cave and actually found this ancient altar. Greed was extremely excited when he saw this altar. He also saw the world inside the rift that the corner of the altar was stuck in. When he saw this, he almost let out a wolf howl. He saw countless celestial grasses. Many of them were ones he had only seen in books, and many he hadn't seen before. Almost all of them could increase his cultivation level once he refined them. There were simply too many celestial grasses there, enough for him to almost stop breathing. Aside from celestial grass, he saw extremely gentle celestial beasts that had terrifying cultivation levels. The celestial beasts were chasing and playing with each other. This made Greed even more excited. From his experience, he knew they wouldn't bother him if he didn't provoke them. It was also likely that, just like the Thunder Dragon in his youth, they would become his pets. All of this made Greed tremble in excitement, but he didn't lose his himself. He carefully observed the rift. He wanted to see if there were any cultivators guarding this place. After observing for several days, he saw two little girls appear. In his view, these two little girls posed no threat. Greed laughed happily and entered the rift. The barrier on the rift had no effect on him at all. Greed didn't feel this was strange at all. He had encountered things similar to this many times. After entering the rift, he saw that the girls were shocked to see him, and he became even more excited. He waved his hand to trap the two little girls and began to pick the celestial grasses. However, he could never forget the miserable things that happened after. He still remembered what those two little girls said after he trapped them. "Han Han, who is he? Why did he suddenly appear here?" "I don't know either. Strange, how did he enter our Purple Sun Sect's beast farm realm? Do you think he is crazy? Those are grasses for the little beasts. Why is he putting them in his mouth?" The two little girls were startled for a while. Then the girl named Wawa stepped forward, completely ignoring Greed's entrapment. She appeared behind him and gave him a kick. After this kick, Greed's misery began. Thinking about everything that happened, tears appeared in Greed's eyes. He looked at the two little girls filled with pride and felt despair in his heart. He couldn't beat them. Back then, just one kick had almost wasted his cultivation. In his view, these two little girls were simply too terrifying. "I'll speak." Last time, that murderous, ugly, shameless, arrogant demon Wang Lin was inside the belly of the moon gazer. Greed's belly was filled with fire as he began to speak. "This Wang Lin is too despicable. How could he be like this?" The little girl in purple named Han Han frowned and muttered unhappily. "Han Han, do you remember what I told you before? When I went out with teacher to gather herbs, I encountered an extremely strange divine sense. I communicated with him, and he told me that his name was Wang Lin." Just as Greed was painfully telling the story in the vast space where the altar was, Wang Lin coughed out another mouthful of blood to use blood escape with a pale face. Behind him, space itself seemed to be burning as 9 firebirds chased after him. A powerful heat wave spread out from the 9 firebirds. Behind them, the 7-colored Taoist was following at a casual pace, filled with killing intent. "I want to see where you will escape to. I'll burn your ancient one body to ashes. The more you recover, the more pain you will suffer. I am going to extract your origin soul and refine it into a treasure. Only by doing that can I resolve the hatred in my heart." Wang Lin's body seemed to be burning and intense pain shrouded his whole being. His blood seemed to be boiling as it moved through his body, causing him intense pain. The blood he coughed out was hot, and his body was like a giant furnace that was slowly being burnt to ashes. Even though he controlled the fire essence, he could only delay it for a bit. It seemed that not even his fire essence could resist the burning from the 7-colored Taoist's spell. Wang Lin's body continued to recover along the way. The more he recovered, the more painful it was, until it got to the point where he almost couldn't bear it anymore. However, Wang Lin didn't waste time. He used blood escape many times to keep running. He was getting closer and closer to the altar. A moment later, after another teleport, Wang Lin saw the altar in the distance. When Wang Lin saw it, his eyes lit up and he moved toward it like a ray of burning fire. It was also at this moment that Greed carefully backed out toward the rift as the two little girls were debating around the name Wang Lin. Greed seemed to have gone crazy and rushed out toward the rift. The moment he charged out, he shed tears of joy. He looked at the space before him and felt like he had just escaped a life and death calamity. However, he was only happy for a moment when he saw a burning ray of light flying towards him. Wang Lin! Wang Lin! Greed was startled for a moment and almost couldn't believe his eyes. However, after taking a closer look, he let out a scream. You still want let me go. I am all the way here and you still follow me. Greed's face turned pale and he subconsciously retreated. Wang Lin closed in and staggered as he landed on the altar. He coughed out another mouthful of blood. At this moment, Wang Lin also saw Greed, who had suddenly appeared before him. Wang Lin ignored Greed and looked into the distance. In the distance, the space burned, and the 9 giant firebirds turned into suns as they approached. Behind them, the 7-colored Taoist, filled with killing intent, closed in. With every step he took, space itself would tremble. It was extremely terrifying. Greed's face changed once more. His eyes widened and he trembled as he retreated. The power of the 7-colored Taoist made him feel dread. This Wang Lin actually provoked such a terrifying figure. Who is this person? Greed trembled, and was about to return to the beast farm realm inside the rift. To him, the outside was too dangerous. It was safer to go back and tell the little ancestors' stories. However, just at this moment, the 7-colored Taoist raised his right hand and pointed at the altar Wang Lin was on. Is this where you're re-escaping to? Then let me refine you here. The 7-colored Taoist pointed, and the 9 suns flew toward Wang Lin. The heat wave rushed toward Wang Lin, incinerating everything in its path. Wang Lin sat down on the altar and stared at the 9 suns flying toward him. He didn't know where the chance of survival was, but he saw the hand in the altar. The Ancient One aura this arm gave off was extremely familiar. Wang Lin immediately recognized it as one of Yi Mo's arms. Could this arm be the chance of survival? Wang Lin didn't hesitate. He didn't even have time to look around. He pressed his hands on this arm. If it was anyone else, they wouldn't be able to fuse with this arm, but Wang Lin was different. He had obtained an authentic Ancient One inheritance from Yi Mo. At this moment, the arm gave off a dazzling glow and shrouded Wang Lin completely. At the same time, Greed began to dream in the heat wave. Half of his body entered the rift, but he was too late to enter completely. 1,000 years, 3,000 years, 10,000 years. I'll tell stories for 10,000 years. 2 little ancestors, save me! Just as Greed roared in pain, he felt 2 little hands press against his back. At the same time, a cultivation powerful enough to almost suffocate him rushed into his body from those 2 small hands. This cultivation force caused Greed's body to shine an endless golden light. This golden light spread and Greed's hands moved on their own until they formed a circular pattern. I awaits. The moment the circular pattern formed, a golden sun appeared in his hand. This golden sun was only the size of a palm, but the power from it was so strong that it shook the entire space here. It shook the cloud sea, it shook the summoned river and the other star systems, and it also shook the entire outer realm. However, there was something even more terrifying to come. The like button for the VIDEO is in danger, urgently wishing for the like button for the VIDEO's aid. Chapter breaking off from the party. TLC no Mumi. A crashing sound could be heard. All flying swords were pointed at a single spot and stabbed in succession. The membrane shook intermittently, its luster weakened. Gradually, against the resistance of the flying swords, a depression appeared on the membrane. Wang Lin's eyes flashed. The glittering flying sword immediately flashed out violently and stabbed continuously at the depression, resulting in it getting deeper and deeper. At this point, the serpentine creature seemingly became aware of the abnormality. It shook its body severely. As it swayed fiercely from side to side, Wang Lin became anxious, and with a wave of his hand, immediately began attacking even more ferociously with the several hundred flying swords. Finally, with a bang, The membrane broke. A thick, fishy smell immediately came out of it. Wang Lin flashed, sticking close to the wall of flesh. He held his breath. The immortal pill in his mouth immediately came into effect and cut off the fishy smell immediately. After the fishy wind passed, Wang Lin immediately rushed in. The serpentine body of the snake had already withered down. Wang Lin felt that this giant snake would not be so easily killed. If in the big snake there was a small snake, then inside the small snake there can also be another snake too. More importantly, Hunchback Meng had said earlier that this serpentine creature should be a wild beast, equivalent to a peak spirit forming stage cultivator. It was common knowledge that it would almost be equivalent to a top expert in a fourth-ranked Shuzhen country. Unless Gudi was among the few who has cultivated to the level of peak spirit forming stage, but according to the words of Hunchback Meng, Wang Lin theorized that these people Haven T reached peak spirit forming stage, and are more likely at mid-spirit forming stage. So finding that there was no possible way to fight, running was the only option for everyone. Wang Lin had originally also planned accordingly, but after watching for a bit, he discovered that this creature, aside from having a thick skin and the fog that it spews, it had no other magical powers, and this caused him to feel quite surprised. He waited and looked at others, only to discover that these old fogies, although had not opened their mouths, but all had doubts twinkling in their eyes. Wang Lin made a wild guess in his heart that this creature only possessed the body of a wild beast, but did not have magical powers comparable to wild beasts at peak spirit forming stage. He had arrived at this speculation when the smaller snake's head had come out from the snake's mouth a second time, rising to the utmost limit. It was precisely because of this speculation that he had dared to take the marrow from the wild beast's mouth. In his view, this wild beast only had its external appearance as such. Its internal appearance was certainly not dangerous. Wang Lin's mind even came up with a crazy idea, whether or not this wild beast is a strange creature, as within that big snake there was a small snake, and in that small snake there may also be another snake inside. In the end, it would be unknown how many snakes are hidden inside the snake that truly has the ability of a wild beast. T-Not. Snakeception. But, basically for those confused, it is saying that it is unknown which one of the snakes would really be the one possessing the powers of the wild beast. As for its exterior, it is nothing but decorations to hide its own body. Therefore it only has the wild beast's flesh, but not the wild beast's magical powers. With that thought, Wang Lin stopped thinking, and quickly putting away his thoughts, he hastily came to the point of connection between Snakehead and the snake's neck. Here there was no membrane, and only half-hidden bones could be seen from outside. Wang Lin without hesitation moved his right hand, and used gravity technique. Suddenly the snake's body started shaking, and swirled up like crazy. At the same time, on the forehead of the snake, inside the giant snake, there was a sudden flash of black light, and the snake's skin started rapidly melting. A look of horror appeared on Hunchback Meng's face, as he rushed forward in distress, flying quickly towards the snake's head at a high speed. When he was passing the point of connection between Snakehead and Snake's neck, he saw Wang Lin. After hesitating a bit, he shouted anxiously, "Run quickly! This is a parasitic aquatic dragon snake. In its body there are a total of 9 snakes, one amongst which has the magical powers of a wild beast." With that said, he slapped at the surrounding wall of flesh with his right hand, and suddenly a flying sword came out, which with much difficulty was able to make a black-colored wound on the flesh wall. The serpentine creature, in extreme pain, opened its mouth wide, and Hunchback Meng immediately flashed out. Wang Lin's eyes flashed. Not only did he not go, instead he stuck to the flesh walls, and concealed his figure. At this point, from that dried-up snake body suddenly came out a red-colored aquatic dragon of a slightly smaller size. With its body flickering with light, it suddenly flashed out in pursuit of Hunchback Meng. Wang Lin, with his body stuck to the flesh wall, remained motionless until Hunchback Meng and the aquatic dragon had flown far away. His eyes flashed. It was not with good intentions that Hunchback Meng had told him to flee. He certainly wanted Wang Lin to leave with him so he could get him distract the aquatic dragon in pursuit and shift its target. Wang Lin sneered inwardly. He was reluctant to mix with these people. If the third barrier had needed him, and if he was able to open it, that would be his good fortune. But he was aware that he did not know any death curse technique, and if the third barrier did not open, then this gang of devil cultivators would certainly kill him to vent their anger. Moreover, even if he manages to open it, it would be of no benefit to him. Even if they do not kill him immediately, he would certainly become a host for 6 Desires Devil Lord to use his techniques. Wang Lin could distinctly remember the blank look in the eyes of that youth. Wang Lin had originally intended to look for an opportunity to leave during the first 2 barriers, if he wasn't able to seek out a chance. Then he would mess up the 3rd barrier, so that when everyone is escaping, no one would have the time to pay attention to him. But now, Wang Lin had changed his plans, and since that red aquatic dragon had gone out in pursuit, so he should be safe within this snake's corpse. His eyes flashed, as he put his right hand on the spine and started to vigorously absorb the bone marrow. Suddenly the snake shook and Wang Lin couldn't help but feel his blood and vital breath bubbling up, as his body couldn't help but get heat up. His complexion became gloomy, as he circulated the spiritual force in his body, and stabilized himself, but the feeling of his blood and vital breath swelling up continued. Wang Lin swept away with his divine consciousness along the gap in the teeth in Big Snake's mouth. After seeing clearly, he immediately blanked out. That giant serpentine creature's body was falling at a breakneck speed which was increasing rapidly, and in a moment had sunk into the dark nothingness. After about half an hour, the speed of falling slowed down, after which the snake shook and bursts of muffled roars came out. After a long time, once again silence was restored. Wang Lin took a deep breath, and without hesitation continued to absorb the bone marrow. At this time the snake no longer trembled, not even the slightest. Gradually, a drop of golden liquid slowly drifted out from the spine, and a faint scent immediately blew out. Wang Lin, with a face reflecting seriousness, patted his storage bag, and a jade bottle flew out. After carefully putting the golden liquid in the jade bottle, Wang Lin let out a deep breath. After putting it away into the storage bag, he flew towards the snake's head and flashed out from within the gaps in the teeth of the serpentine creature. There was only darkness in front of him, without the slightest light. Wang Lin's hands moved to form a few hand seals as he shouted in a low tone, "Go!" Suddenly a fireball the size of a skull quietly appeared in front of him and moved forward. With the flame, as Wang Lin looked around, his expressions became more and more odd. To be precise, in this nothingness also there were stones floating, but the size of these stones was hundreds of times that compared to earlier. That huge serpentine creature was lying with its head on a stone and his body dangling, and it couldn't be seen till how far it extended. This serpentine creature had its eyes closed and didn't have any breath whatsoever. Wang Lin, after looking carefully for a bit, theorized that this serpentine creature was like this because the red aquatic dragon had left its body. It seemed like it was just like the yuan yin that is within a cultivator's body, therefore it lost its vitality and fell down just now. This would also explain why, when it was extracting the marrow fluid, this creature didn't show even the slightest movement. Wang Lin looked at the giant snake. His eyes flashed a bit, but sighing inwardly he let go of the idea in his mind. This snake lying here at the moment was like a mountain of treasure, let alone other things. Even just its brain pellet and its snake skin were already priceless, but Wang Lin wasn't dazzled by these things. Firstly, it couldn't be said for certain whether he would be able to pierce through the flesh wall outside the brain pellet, or whether he could rip off the snake skin. Only thing that can be said is that the red aquatic dragon which had gone out is likely to come back at any time, and once if it struck Wang Lin, then even if he had 100 lives, he would still die cleanly in an instant. Wang Lin looked at it once, then took out from his mouth the antidote pellet that had been given to him by Hunchback Meng. The immortal pill had already been reduced to half, but it was still a treasure for Wang Lin, who put it into his storage bag. He put out the fireball and jumped up, as in this dark void the fire was too bright, so for safety reasons Wang Lin could only fly in the dark. Gradually his eyes slowly adjusted to the darkness, although he could not see everything in the surroundings, but he could make out vague outlines. Aside from the stones being hundreds of times bigger, there was not much a difference compared to above, but the speed at which the stones moved was faster by quite a bit. Moreover, there was a feeling of sense of crisis bursting out from several directions. Wang Lin took each step carefully, slowing down his speed. Often, even when several tens of feet away from the stone, he would watch carefully for a long time before daring to move. At this time, he dropped onto a stone. Suddenly his body stiffened as a shadow flashed in front of him. Wang Lin held his breath and stood motionless while staring straight ahead. Slowly, he could make out the silhouette. At the center of the stone there was a round shadow. This shadow had a size of about 1,000 feet. On its body were countless tentacles, and these tentacles were extremely long and were swaying devoid of any pattern. The shadow that had flashed just now was one such tentacle. After Wang Lin was able to see clearly, he stepped back a bit. This strange creature is able to survive here. Its strength would certainly be formidable, and thus it is not something he could provoke. After gradually withdrawing a few tens of feet, he had already retreated to the edge of the stone. Wang Lin's eyes stayed glued to the creature, while he suddenly jumped back and flying in the air, quickly flew away into the distance. After getting 1,000 feet away, Wang Lin took a deep sigh of relief, and looking up to glance at the endless nothingness, he couldn't help but smile wryly. Only by reaching the stones that he had initially come to, could he find the aperture that would enable him to exit this place. Wang Lin remained silent for a while. He did not dare spread his divine consciousness too far. Otherwise, if by accident he provoked some powerful creature, it would become dangerous for him. He slowly flew upward, and seeing that there was a huge dark shadow, he hurriedly stopped himself. Only after determining that it was a conical-shaped stone, he slowly approached it. However, at this time, suddenly a red light appeared from above, accompanied by a strange whistling sound coming down rapidly. Wang Lin immediately flashed out and stuck onto the conical shape below the stone, remaining motionless. He could only see the bright light flash past the other side of the rock, falling downward and suddenly disappearing without a trace. Wang Lin could feel his scalp tingle. When it had flashed past, he could vaguely make out that the red light was the red aquatic dragon which had flown out of the serpentine creature in pursuit of Hunchback Meng. Now that this aquatic dragon is flying back, he didn't know whether Hunchback Meng was alive or not. Wang Lin sneered inwardly, then getting away from the stone he slowly flew up, and after landing on the stone, he immediately observed his surroundings. This stone was uninhabited. After carefully observing for a long time, Wang Lin, sighing deeply, sat down cross-legged and drinking the Ling Qi liquid, cautiously stared downward. Once the red aquatic dragon returns to the body, it would certainly discover some abnormalities. Wang Lin, after remaining silent for a bit, immediately sank down into the stone. He pressed down with his right hand onto his forehead, and immediately the heaven-revolting bead appeared. His eyes flashed as he instantly entered the heaven-revolting space. Shortly after he had entered the heaven-revolting space, a roar sounded from below which was filled with towering rage. The red aquatic dragon immediately flew out from below like lightning, roaring while it continuously smashed through stones the size of several thousand feet. Its green eyes shined with a cold light as it searched all around. This aquatic dragon did have some intelligence. It knew that it was very likely that the person who stole the marrow has not gone far away. Therefore his eyes, filled with a vicious light, looked around everywhere. Even after a long time, the aquatic dragon could not find anything. It roared again crazily. Not ready to reconcile to it, he crouched down onto a stone and slowly calmed down. But soon it got up and rushed out immediately, rushing past the stone on which Wang Lin had seen the shadow with innumerable tentacles. The moment that the aquatic dragon rushed past, the tentacles immediately started shaking. Quickly tangling together, they formed a cone, seemingly unafraid of the red aquatic dragon. Bursts of crashing sounds came out from below one after the other. At the same time, a variety of lights flashed again and again. Huge spiritual force fluctuations forming a hurricane swept away all the stones in the surroundings. Even Wang Lin's stone was affected, and its size was almost cut by half. This great war lasted for about a day before slowly settling down. With the aquatic dragon venting its anger on the shadow, it ended up retreating. And as for the aquatic dragon, it also ended up sustaining heavy injuries as it roared out again and again. At last, everything became calm. 10 days later, Wang Lin came out from heaven-revolting space and appeared with a flash atop the stone. As soon as he appeared, he spread out his divine consciousness and looked around. The amount of stones in the surroundings had significantly decreased, and instead there was a lot of gravel. After a long time, Wang Lin relaxed, then after pondering a bit, he immediately flew up towards the top. After crossing several stones, Wang Lin's body suddenly shook as he stared straight ahead. Just now, for an instant, he saw a piece of gravel suddenly disappear somewhere. Wang Lin, with a look full of seriousness, slowly backed and at the same time with his right hand directed the gravel in the surroundings to immediately come flying. Wang Lin, pointing at a spot in front, softly said, "Go!" Those pieces of gravel immediately flew forward, while Wang Lin's eyes remained glued to the spot in front of him. He could see that the stones did not fly far before suddenly disappearing immediately. Wang Lin took a deep breath. He saw clearly that when the stones disappeared, a black hole had been suddenly split open because the speed was too quick coupled with lack of clear line of sight. At first glance, it appeared that the piece of gravel had suddenly disappeared. Wang Lin, after remaining silent for a bit, while staring straight ahead, slapped his storage bag, and a flying sword flew out in front of his chest. He touched the sword blade with his right hand, and the flying sword immediately shot forward. In an instant, it reached the position where the pieces of gravel had disappeared. Suddenly, that black hole opened again. The moment that it was swallowing the flying sword, suddenly Wang Lin formed his right hand into hand seals and shouted in a low tone, "Break!" The flying sword with a bang broke into pieces, and while the black hole closed, the fragments were able to come out of it. Wang Lin was staring at all of this, and as he beckoned with his right hand, one of the pieces changed its direction, returned to his hand. Wang Lin stared at the flying sword fragment, which had a few remnant drops of black liquid, and around that liquid, the flying sword was showing sign of corruption. It's not a space rift, Wang Lin is able to determine immediately. The reason that he had been so careful in testing was the fear that there might be a space rift. If it had been so, then the risk would have once again been raised up a notch. Wang Lin at the moment was not a soul devourer, but was instead in a mortal body, and under the influence of the space rift it would torn to pieces, with all living things getting destroyed. Wang Lin, breathing a sigh of relief, stretched out his hands, and in a flash, all the pieces of gravel in the surroundings immediately gathered fiercely, forming a stone ring around his body. He flew sideways for a bit, then once more flew forward. All along the way, as long as he saw pieces of gravel disappearing, he would immediately change direction. Gradually, after repeatedly observing, Wang Lin was already able to determine that the rift-like thing swallowing the pieces of gravel is actually a strange creature which was invisible to the naked eye. The biological body structure of this creature is extremely strange. Even divine consciousness found it difficult to see even the slightest hint of it. Wang Lin experienced as a soul devourer in the past, when he had spent countless years in the foreign battlefield as space rift, had led him to this answer. This is why Wang Lin was extremely careful along the way. There was danger here at each step. If was careless even in the slightest, then he would be buried here, especially with him being a Jidan stage cultivator, in a place as dangerous as a dragon S-lair. Even the slightest oversight would result in his death. So as Wang Lin was silently calculating the amount of time that had passed since he had arrived, he had not even gone ahead 500 kilometers, and these 500 kilometers, if the situation was otherwise usual, would take him a very short time to flash past, but now they had taken a few days. In a few days, Wang Lin was already rendered unable to calculate time, as all his energy was spent on remaining alert at all times. Time slowly passed. Wang Lin himself did not know how long he had been flying for, but remaining concentrated on being cautious had time and again allowed him to evade crisis. On this day, Wang Lin was resting on a stone for a bit, although he hadn't lost much spiritual force, but his mind was exhausted. Fortunately, even before entering this place, Wang Lin was in the habit of remaining cautious. Otherwise, if somebody else had been in his place, with his muscles weary and mind tormented, he would have long since died here. After a short break, Wang Lin took a deep breath, and standing up he pointed out several spots in the nothingness with his right hand. The glittering flying sword suddenly flashed out. As it rotated around the rocks like crazy, the big chunks of gravel in the surroundings were gradually cut down and started floating around. Wang Lin stretched out his hands, and the pieces of gravel immediately started coming together. These days, Wang Lin was using these rocks to clear the way, and whenever he ran out of pieces of gravel, he would make use of the materials in his surroundings and chop some of the stones. After these pieces of gravel formed a ring, Wang Lin immediately jumped forward and began flying slowly. Gradually, after he had flown a bit of distance, Wang Lin immediately frowned and stopped himself immediately. His eyes flashed as he observed his surroundings. The darkness here had dissipated quite a bit, and an ambiguous sheen was coming from all directions. Only Wang Lin had not time to bother with where it was coming from. He was now staring straight ahead as he had a bad feeling in his heart. His eyes had by now fully adapted to the darkness. Coupled with the sheen, it enabled him to see clearly. As per his rough calculations, from here onwards, in a roughly 10,000 kilometer radius, there were only one piece of gravel floating. All of this did not conform to common sense, as per Wang Lin's experience. a single crushed stone would appear often every few kilometers, and even if the stone were to be smashed to pieces. There would be some crushed stones as well as flying ash, but he couldn't see it in the least bit here. This can be explained in only two ways. One would be that there occurred a very intense battle causing a hurricane to surge, leading to all the other stones aside from that one to get blown far away, thereby resulting in the current scene. The second would be that there are countless creatures here which, similar to space rifts, have swallowed all the stones completely. This was Wang Lin's analysis, because earlier he had seen with his own eyes that a huge conical rock was chewed up clean by a big mouth which suddenly appeared. In the time it takes for one incense stick to burn, the 7,800 feet big conical stone had vanished. Wang Lin was hesitant. If indeed that was the case in this place, then he would be required to make a detour, otherwise once if he enters, he would have to face danger immediately. Pondering slightly, Wang Lin pointed with his right hand towards a piece of gravel in front of him. The piece of gravel suddenly went forward slowly and soon entered the area. Even after drifting far, it did not vanish. Wang Lin, pondering a bit, used his hands to direct all the pieces of gravel in the surroundings. And immediately all the pieces of gravel pushed forward in a formation. Wang Lin was not in a hurry, as he stood quietly at first but looking at the pieces of crushed stone slowly going forward, which after a long time arrived within 5,000 kilometers of the huge stone. As soon as it neared, a piece of crushed stone suddenly disappeared. Wang Lin's eyes narrowed as he stared fixedly for a while. Shortly thereafter, another piece of crushed stone disappeared. Very quickly the crushed stone started disappearing. In the end, passing through the huge stone, all the crushed stones had disappeared completely. Wang Lin's eyes flashed, recalling a few points that he had observed during his experiences in the past few days. According to which Wang Lin knew that these space rift resembling space creatures could not move and seemingly can stay fixed in only spot. However, this did not rule out the possibility that this one may move. Wang Lin, after remaining silent for a long time, gave up on the idea of entering that place. This place was extremely strange, and he would rather waste time in bypassing it rather than take the risk. After all, the price of failure was something he cannot afford. After reaching a firm decision, Wang Lin retreated back and again using the flying sword, cut up a lot of crushed stones in the locality to form a ring, flew sideways. Gradually, Wang Lin's complexion became more and more gloomy. He had already flown very far, but this empty region seemed limitless, and didn't appear to have any boundary at all. If this blank space's boundaries is compared to a long white strip, then it seemed as if it covered this whole space of nothingness. Wang Lin tried to fly out for several days, but in the end he was forced to give up his plan to bypass this zone. The like button for the video has dropped to 5th place, tears brimming and wishing for the like button for the video. The continents in the wind celestial realm had been taken by Wang Lin, but the realm was still there. The passage Wang Lin had sealed was still there as well. The moment this aura spread out, the door at the end of the passage trembled violently. This made the aura that terrified the cave world leak into the Guyi sect through this door. The moment the aura appeared, the expressions of all cultivators in the sect changed greatly. Those with high cultivation levels were filled with shock and disbelief. One of the 9 suns, the aura of a Grand Empyrean, this which Grand Empyrean appeared there? On the immortal astral continent, Fan Shanmeng, who was sitting inside the ice mountain, instantly turned pale. The ice mountain suddenly collapsed, and she jumped out with her face filled with horror. This is the aura of a Grand Empyrean. On the immortal astral continent of the Eastern 9 sects and 13 factions, the number 1 sect was the Purple Sun sect. Just the power of one sect was enough to sweep the other 8 sects. This was because one of the legendary Grand Empyreans was a member of the Purple Sun sect, one of the 9 suns of the immortal astral continent. However, this Grand Empyrean was very mysterious, and few people knew what this person looked like. People didn't even know if this Grand Empyrean was male or female. However, the more mysterious this Grand Empyrean was, the less people were willing to provoke the Purple Sun sect. At this moment, inside the Purple Sun sect, there were 7 or 8 old men gathered, and their faces were filled with bitterness. There was a dignified middle-aged man before them who roared loudly. "All of you, tell me what is going on." They said they were going to play in the beast farm realm. But one of the elders seemed to mutter, filled with helplessness. "Play? The aura of the Grand Empyrean has spread out. How could this still be playing?" The middle-aged man roared, but his eyes were also filled with helplessness. "We can open the beast farm realm. They have sealed it, and 1T let us in." Another old man bitterly shook his head. "No mistake is allowed in the Grand Empyrean's reincarnation. They are still growing. It is not ideal to use their Grand Empyrean power. Those two little ancestors, what are they doing?" The middle-aged man stomped his feet, and the entire purple sunset trembled. Even the world outside trembled. Inside the spatial rift, Wang Lin was sitting in the altar, and saw the terrifying aura that had erupted from greed. Shock appeared in his eyes. The sun in Greed's hand rapidly spread until it was the size of one person. The 9 firebirds let out miserable screams as they attempted to retreat, but as the sunlight flashed, they all collapsed. There was also the 7-colored Taoist, who was startled for a moment. Although he hadn't obtained the memory, some things were engraved in his soul. Even if he split into 3 souls, certain things couldn't be erased. This memory was the fear and respect toward the 9 sons of the immortal astral continent. This is the aura of a Grand Empyrean. The 7-colored Taoist's expression changed. As the sunlight closed in, his body trembled and he coughed out blood. He retreated like crazy. He no longer considered refining Wang Lin and was scared out of his wits by the aura coming from the sun. Not only him, but old Ghost John, who was following the 4 generals to see if they could find the 3rd soul, suddenly trembled. His face turned deathly pale. "Grand Empyrean!" He didn't speak, but a sharp voice came from his body. "How can this be? The aura of a Grand Empyrean entered here. This. That terrifying aura spread across the inner realm, the outer realm, and the entire cave world. It swept across each planet and each living being on them. At this moment, the entire cave world entered a moment of confusion. Right now, someone, whether he was a beast, mortal, or cultivator, was simulated by the Grand Empyrean aura and remembered memories he had forgotten countless reincarnations ago. These memories would have never awakened, even after tens of thousands of years, without the stimulation from the Grand Empyrean aura. However, due to this sheer coincidence, those memories awakened. These memories that had awakened was the 3rd soul. In the spatial rift in the cloud sea, the 7-colored Taoist escaped in panic. He coughed out blood and escaped without a trace. He now felt extreme fear toward the spatial rift in the cloud sea. He could have never expected that hunting Wang Lin would cause the aura of a Grand Empyrean to appear. On the altar inside the rift, Wang Lin stared dumbfoundedly as the sun surrounded greed and pulled him into the rift. Through the rift, Wang Lin saw the 2 cute little girls inside. "Hey, is you one of the little girls inside the beast farm realm?" Seemed to see Wang Lin and revealed a joyous expression. Han, look, he is the person I was speaking of. He is also called Wang Lin." Wah, quickly seal up the rift here. Those annoying old fellows are coming. If they find out about this place, then we won't be able to come anymore. "Okay, I'll seal the rift, and you go hide greed. We can let them find out." The rift was covered by a ray of golden light and gradually disappeared. Even now, Wang Lin still felt confused about all of this. He sat on the altar and pondered for a very long time before he withdrew his gaze from the rift. One of the 9 sons Grand Empyrean. The space was completely silent, and no light remained. Wang Lin silently sat on the altar, recalling everything that had happened. These 2 little children are actually Grand Empyreans, the legendary Grand Empyreans of the immortal astral continent. Just their auras were able to make the 7-colored Taoist escape in fear. Wang Lin's eyes shined brighter and brighter. "One day, I'll also become a Grand Empyrean." Wang Lin closed his eyes, and a moment later, he opened them. He had calmed his heart. The 7-colored Taoist should not dare to come here anymore. This should be the safest place. I need to comprehend the restriction essence, fused with those 9 drops of blood. And this arm. Wang Lin looked at the arm that was a few hundred feet long. If I absorb this arm and use the tearing the heavens spell, I wonder how much of Yimo's strength I can display. Wang Lin's eyes shined. After calming himself, he pointed to the spot between his eyebrows, and the 8 drops of blood flew out. These 8 drops of blood floated before him. They gave off no light, but powerful ancient aura came from them. Wang Lin's 7 ancient god stars rotated rapidly to form a vortex. In his right and left eyes, his ancient devil and demon stars also appeared. The current Wang Lin looked extremely strange. Yimou's blood contains the full power of the three ancient clans. Wang Lin grabbed 1 drop of blood, and, after pondering for a moment, crushed it. It was divided into 7 parts that were absorbed into 7 orifices. This time he wasn't simply fusing it between his eyebrows, but fusing it with his body. After fusing with 1 drop of blood, a thunderous rumble came from his body. His body began to swell as it rapidly absorbed the ancient power within. The ancient god stars between his eyebrows rotated rapidly. The 8th star slowly took shape, but it was extremely unstable, as if it could dissipate at any moment. Wang Lin's expression became twisted from the pain coming from his body, but he endured it. The leap from 7 stars to 8 stars was great. Wang Lin also had to spend a part of his effort to increase the power of his ancient demon stars in his left eye. What he wanted was a balanced growth of all 3 ancient clans and not just ancient god. Time slowly passed. In the blink of an eye, 7 days went by. He was now covered in sweat and forcing himself to stay conscious. After absorbing the 1st drop, he crushed the 2nd drop and then the 3rd drop. 2 drops of blood swelled inside his body at the same time. Not only was his 8th ancient god star about to appear, but his ancient demon stars in his left eye were rotating rapidly as well. The sign of an 8th ancient demon star was about to appear as well. Wang Lin swelled up out of his control, and the Ancient One's shadow appeared behind him. The shadow distorted as if it was going through a mysterious change. Several days later, Wang Lin opened his eyes and waved his sleeves. The remaining 5 drops of blood exploded into a blood mist before entering his body through his pores and orifices. As the mist continued to dissipate, Wang Lin's muffled groans came from within. The 8th ancient demon star slowly appeared in his left eye. The moment the demon star appeared, a monstrous storm of demonic energy swept across the world inside this rift. All the beasts knelt and didn't dare to move. At the same time, in his right eye, the 8th ancient devil star appeared. A monstrous devilish energy rushed out. The violent and cruel devilish energy swept across this space. The last to appear was the ancient god star. 3 trials, 7 calamities, is about to arrive. The mist around Wang Lin had long disappeared. Between his eyebrows, the 8th ancient god star shined brightly and was about to take shape. Forgot to mention, at the end of the month, wishing for the like button for the video. The ancient gods faced the 3 trials, 7 calamities, and the ancient demons and ancient devils faced the same thing. Every calamity was like a new beginning, and anyone who survived would have their strength increased greatly. However, Wang Lin's 3 trials, 7 calamities were much more powerful than that of others. Not only had his ancient god one arrived, but his ancient demon and ancient devils ones had arrived as well. The first trial of the ancient clans has 2 calamities. The second trial also has 2 calamities, the divine calamity and soul calamity. Wang Lin had already passed the first 2 trials, and the one that was coming was the strongest of the 3 trials, the 3rd trial that had 3 calamities. However, his ancient demon and devil bodies, which had fused together, hadn't gone through the 1st or 2nd trials. As a result, when he reached 8 stars on them, a total of 8 calamities would arrive at the SME time. The ancient clan's calamities had to be passed one by one. The 8 ancient demon stars in his left eye rotated, forming a vortex. Demonic energy spread out from his left eye and covered his entire face before shrouding his whole body. At this moment, Wang Lin didn't look like a cultivator at all. His face was blue, and his expression was ferocious. His veins swelled up and demonic energy spread out from his body. Wang Lin looked like a real demonic cultivator. His white hair moved behind him eerily and popping sounds echoed inside his body. The nails on his hands extended until they were more than 1 foot long. Those 10 nails were completely purplish red and looked extremely demonic. The demonic energy around his body condensed into a purplish red armor. This was a set of demonic armor the ancient demon clan members could create once they reached 8 stars. Covered in demonic armor, Wang Lin sat down on the altar. The ancient one's shadow dissipated and was replaced by a huge ancient demon shadow. Its whole body was glowing green and its eyes had a strange light. It floated behind Wang Lin and was also sitting. The ancient demon's hair fluttered in the air, and it was thousands of feet tall. From a distance, the ancient demon's hair looked like smoke. At this moment, even if someone that knew him saw him, they wouldn't be able to recognize him immediately. Wang Lin closed his eyes as he slowly cycled the ancient demon power in his body. At this moment, the first trial and 2 calamities of the ancient demon arrived. Similar to the ancient god calamity, it was the bone calamity and the flesh calamity. These 2 calamities erupted inside Wang Lin's ancient demon body. Just as they appeared, the demonic energy around Wang Lin became chaotic. He remained motionless, and his eyebrows were locked. His closed eyes seemed to hide all the pain he was facing. The bones and flesh of his ancient demon body were being destroyed, but this pain was far from Wang Lin's limit. The ancient god calamities he faced back then were countless times stronger than what he was facing now. Time slowly passed. In the blink of an eye, 5 days went by. After 5 days passed, Wang Lin suddenly opened his eyes. There were no stars between his eyebrows or in his right eye, but 8 ancient demon stars were rapidly rotating in his left eye, giving off a monstrous demonic energy. The ancient demon clan's first trial and 2 calamities is only this strong. Wang Lin was calm. He was indeed qualified to feel this. The ancient demon's first trials and 2 calamities were no threat to him. After the first trial, the second trial began shrouding Wang Lin's divine sense and soul. The demonic energy around him became violent, and the ancient demon shadow behind him became twisted, as if it was going to let out a roar in pain. Wang Lin raised his right hand and pointed at his left eye, and his face became ferocious. He used his full attention to suppress the second trial, and after 10 days of suppression, the 2 calamities of the second trial collapsed. After going through 2 trials and 4 calamities, Wang Lin's ancient demon power surged and spread across the star domain. A powerful demon was born. Wang Lin's twisted expression slowly calmed down. His hands formed a seal, and then he placed his hands on his knees. The ancient demon stars in his left eye gradually faded away. The moment they completely disappeared, the ancient devil stars in his right eye lit up. 8 ancient devil stars appeared. The demonic energy around Wang Lin scattered and was replaced with boundless devilish energy. This monstrous devilish energy formed a black mist that released the screams of countless miserable souls. Under this monstrous devilish energy, the ancient demon armor around Wang Lin shattered and a strange, black-as-ink armor appeared. This armor created a shocking contrast with his white hair, which was a shocking sight for anyone who saw him. Devilish patterns appeared on Wang Lin's face. As the devilish energy surged, Wang Lin changed from a demonic cultivator to a devil. A devil, something that coexisted with celestials, gods, and demons. Throughout the ages, all the so-called devils were fake. Even ancient devils were not true devils. A real devil had no body, soul, or cultivation. It was a will to be the only ruler. Wang Lin's path was similar to a devil's, but he had never become a true devil. After all, his main body was an ancient god. At this moment, the ancient devil stars rotated and monstrous devilish energy surged. Wang Lin's eyes opened, revealing merciless, cold light as he welcomed the ancient devil's first and second calamities. The power of the ancient devil calamities was similar to the ancient demon calamities, but just a bit stronger. Among the 3 ancient clans, the ancient gods were the strongest, followed by the ancient devils, and the ancient demons were the weakest. Their 3 trials, 7 calamities were the same. After 7 days, Wang Lin's ancient devil body went through the first and second calamities. The pain of having his flesh and bones destroyed was still not as bad as the ancient god calamities he had faced. He then used another 13 days to suppress the second trial for the ancient devil. The sharpening of his divine sense and soul allowed Wang Lin to almost reach completion with his ancient devil body. After his ancient devil body successfully passed the 2 trials and 4 calamities, his 3 ancient clan powers reached a balance. As he sat on the altar, the 8 ancient god stars appeared without hesitation. Ancient god and 8-star ancient god. Wang Lin had cultivated for more than 2,000 years. Through various fortunes and life and death situations, he had reached today and had become an 8-star ancient god. Not only was he an ancient god, but he was also an 8-star ancient demon and 8-star ancient devil. When the 3 fused into one, with the ancient god as the main body, they would become an ancient one. Wang Lin's eyes revealed a strange light, and a total of 24 stars rotated at the same time. The aura of an ancient one spread out and filled the stars. A powerful feeling appeared in Wang Lin's mind. Wang Lin mercilessly clenched his fists. He knew that what he would face now was the real calamity. The third trial of the ancient clans, all three would come at once. The third trial had three calamities, the first being the ancient race heavenly blood, the second calamity being the ancient Tao three distractions. As for the third calamity, it was the strongest calamity the ancient ones faced. It was called the blessing of the ancient ancestor. Wang Lin didn't know much about the specifics. Although he had obtained the inheritance from Yimo, the memories were limited. He just knew that when facing the last two calamities, he would have to go to the ancient temple in the ancient country, on the immortal astral continent to attempt them. Anytime a member of the ancient country reached the last calamity, a grand event would be held throughout the entire country. There would be a grand ceremony. Ancient One Yimo had gone through the last calamity in the ancient temple. He then obtained the title of Ancient Tao and became one of the powerhouses of the ancient country, admired by tens of millions of people. Even the Celestials attached great importance to the final calamity of the ancient clan. As Wang Lin sat on the altar, his body was being shrouded by even more powerful Ancient One aura to meet the first calamity of the third trial. Once he passed this calamity, he would become a true 8-star ancient god. With the power of 8 stars from all three ancient clans, even without his cultivation, Wang Lin would be confident in overpowering early-stage arcane void cultivators. If his cultivation level increased further with the formation of the seventh essence, not even mid-stage arcane void cultivators would be his match after his cultivation and Ancient One power fused. He could directly battle late-stage arcane void cultivators. Ancient race heavenly blood, this calamity arrived. The so-called heavenly blood calamity required one to condense all the power of the three clans in one body into one drop of blood. This drop of blood was everything for the person going through the calamity. They would use this drop of blood to break through the heavens and offer it as a sacrifice to the ancient race. Once you obtained the recognition of the ancient ancestor, then no matter where you were, a drop of blood would be sent back. This drop of blood would fuse with the drop of blood that was formed by the essence of the person going through the calamity. Once they fused, the body that would reform would have the true Ancient One bloodline. This bloodline was an equal existence to the celestial bloodline. The difficulty of this calamity wasn't the pain of condensing that drop of blood, but obtaining the recognition of the ancient ancestor. It was not something that just anyone could obtain. Even if one obtained the recognition of the ancient ancestor, the amount of blood obtained in return would be different as well, depending on the level of recognition. If it was ordinary, then only 1 drop, but if the recognition was high, then it could be 2 drops. Ancient Tao Yimo obtained 3 drops of blood when he went through the calamity. Throughout the ages, the person that obtained the most before Yimo had obtained 8 drops. This person was one of the 9 sons of the immortal astral continent, the ancient country's Grand Empyrean Xuan Luo. It was also him who battled against Grand Empyrean Dao Yi to obtain that fragment outside of the 7 Dao sect. Wang Lin was sitting on the altar. After pondering for a long time, he closed his eyes, and his ancient aura around him condensed inside his body. He began the first step of this calamity, refining that drop of blood. A vague shadow overlapped with his body, and another Wang Lin gradually walked out. This was his avatar, his cultivator avatar. After his avatar left, Wang Lin's original body was now pure Ancient One. I forgot to say, the latest 3 chapters are all 4,000-word major chapters. Is Leo that kind? So this is the moon god. Is it the like button for the video? Do you all also start the video? With ancient demon body, extract the soul of the demon and form a drop of blood. Extract. Wang Lin raised his right hand to press on his body and let out a roar. His body trembled violently. His left eye immediately melted and intense pain washed over him. Even Wang Lin clenched his teeth in pain. Wang Lin felt like a part of his body was being pulled out, and a drop of blood flew out from his left eye. This drop of blood was the size of a nail, floating before Wang Lin. Inside the drop sat a small ancient demon that looked like Wang Lin. With my ancient devil body, extract the soul of the devil and form a drop of blood. Extract. Wang Lin's voice was calm, forming a stark contrast with his painful expression. As he spoke, his right hand formed a seal and pressed on his body again. Popping sounds came from his right eye before it collapsed. Wang Lin's body rapidly withered until it was like a skeleton. After his right eye collapsed, a drop of black blood filled with monstrous devilish energy flew out and floated next to the ancient demon blood. There was a small ancient devil Wang Lin sitting inside it. With my ancient god body, melt everything and form a drop of ancient god blood. Wang Lin's vision was blurry and he could not see clearly. The pain was already beyond his limit, but he still held on. He had to survive this ancient race heavenly blood calamity. His body melted rapidly. The first parts to melt were his legs and arms, then his entire body was surrounded by a blood mist. Then his entire body disappeared and became part of the blood mist. The mist moved and rapidly condensed. After about 7 minutes, it formed a drop of ancient god blood. At this moment, on this altar, from the view of Wang Lin's avatar, his original body had disappeared without a trace. Only 3 drops of blood remained. The 3 drops of blood floated there, and inside each one sat a tiny Wang Lin. At this moment, the 3 figures opened their eyes, and the 3 drops of blood rapidly fused. After a few moments of silence, the 3 drops of blood fused into 1 drop. This drop of blood was the essence of the ancient god, ancient demon, and ancient devil bodies. It was Wang Lin's everything. Different from the blood of the celestials, this blood was not golden, but gave off a black light. It caused the surroundings to look hazy. The moment the 3 drops of blood fused into 1, an ancient aura spread out from it. This drop of blood contained the passage of time and the ancient clan's heaven-defying will. It shot into the sky and flew off into the distance. No cultivator in the entire cave world would notice this aura, because this aura belonged to the ancient clan. It didn't belong to any cultivator. This had aura appeared to summon the ancient clan. As the aura spread out, anyone who had the ancient bloodline in the cave world would feel it. They would feel a power from their bloodline. In the inner realm, the ancient demon in the cloud sea that hadn't died after all those battles opened his eyes in shock. He stared into the distance as he felt this aura, and he faintly felt like worshipping that aura. Inside the invisible rift around the collapsed planet Donglin sat a woman who was also an ancient god. At this moment her eyes opened and became filled with horror. She was startled for a moment before her body began to tremble uncontrollably. Ancient race heavenly blood. In the outer realm, in the ancient tomb, Tuo Sen hadn't left. He had decided to stay inside to complete his inheritance. He was still sitting there with his eyes closed. Wang Lin had given him the memory inheritance he always wanted. After years of fusing with it, perhaps he was still Tuo Sen, or perhaps he had become the awakened Tu Si. But at this moment, he suddenly opened his eyes and his pupils shrank. On the immortal astral continent, the east and south belonged to the celestials, and the west and north belonged to the ancient ones. Because the immortal astral continent was so large, many cultivators or ancient ones had never left their own country. At this moment, in the northern part of the immortal astral continent, there was a giant floating city. Just the size of this city was as big as the cave world. It was impossible to see the edges of this city. The space below the city was completely dark, a place that would never see sunlight. This was the ancient country's prison for celestial prisoners. With the city acting as a suppression tool, many celestial bloodline cultivators were imprisoned here. At the center of this ancient city stood a huge statue. This statue was very large, looking as if it supported the sky above the immortal astral continent. Even if you were far away, you could still see this statue. This statue was that of a middle-aged man. His expression was majestic as he looked at the earth below him. He gave off a gaze that made it seem like he looked down upon everything. In his eyes, what was this sky? What was this earth? And what did celestials count as? His hands were stretched out as if he controlled the entire immortal astral continent. His huge palms felt like they had the power to destroy the entire continent. A young man stood on his left hand. This young man had a head of black hair and wore a black robe. His black hair fluttered in the wind as he looked at the statue before him with respect in his eyes. A faint light had appeared between the eyebrows of this statue a few days ago. This light was red, and it almost looked like condensed blood. It was this shocking scene that caused this young man to be standing here staring at it. Behind him floated thousands of figures. Behind them floated tens of thousands and even hundreds of thousands of figures. Although there was a large amount of people, there was no noise. Everyone's gazes were locked onto the young man in black and the statue. After a long time, the young black-haired man seemed to slowly mutter to himself as the time arrived. Just at this moment, 9 giants about 100,000 feet tall were walking over from the distant void. Behind them was a man dressed in a royal robe who looked almost exactly like the statue. As he walked over, he had his hands behind his back. Behind him followed 9 more 100,000 feet tall giants. His appearance caused the nearly 1 million ancient country cultivators to bow. "Greetings, ancient emperor." Only the black-haired young man didn't bow and still calmly looked at the statue. The man in the royal robe didn't seem to mind at all. He walked past the 1 million people bowing to him and arrived beside the young man. He smiled as he clasped his hands and spoke with respect without losing any of his dignity. "Yisu greets Grand Empyrean Xuan Luo." The black-haired young man was one of the 9 sons. Grand Empyrean Xuan Luo. The black-haired young man slowly said, "The time is almost here, a bit late. I hope Grand Empyrean can forgive me. The Ji and Shi emperors are both very concerned about what is happening here, and I was talking to them with my divine sense." The middle-aged man in the royal robe revealed a wry smile and nodded. The black-haired young man let out a cold snort. "The 3 emperors, Ji, Dao, and Shi. You are the emperor of the kingdom of Dao, and there are times when you don't need to bother giving them any attention. This matter is a great event for my Dao kingdom, so of course they are concerned." As Uncle says, the middle-aged man changed the way he addressed the young man. After hearing the middle-aged man call him Uncle, the black-haired young man's expression softened slightly. "Uncle, this matter is very strange. I wonder, what are the chances?" The man in the royal robe looked at the statue of his ancestor, who looked just like him. The black-haired young man pondered for a long time before speaking. "Yi Mo's heir is an accident. I don't know what happened. I merely felt it through the bloodline. As for whether he can obtain the recognition of the ancient ancestor, I'm not sure. He is the heir of Yi Mo." How is this possible? The man in the royal robe trembled. Apparently it was the first time he had heard of this. Back then, Yi Mo, before he could finish speaking, he was interrupted by the black-haired young man. 7 days ago, my ancient clan's ancient statue gave off the heavenly bloodlight. This matter is normal, but this heavenly bloodlight has been gathering for 7 days and still hasn't formed. This kind of thing is extremely rare. Even for me, the bloodlight only gathered for 9 days. I carefully searched everyone with the ancient bloodline and found that no one had begun the ancient race heavenly blood calamity. Then I performed a divination to find the root. It was Yi Mo's heir. If he succeeds, and if he can come to the immortal astral continent, then I'll consider taking him as my disciple. My only disciple. To be able to reach such a point inside the cave world and then be able to come out means he will become someone very powerful in the future. A powerful person for my ancient race. After I reincarnate, he can help guard the ancient race. I hope he can succeed." The black-haired young man said slowly as he looked at the statue. Time slowly passed. 8 days, 9 days, until 13 days went by. Still in complete silence, all the surrounding ancient clan members looked at the bloodlight around the statue become more intense during these days. More and more expectation appeared in their eyes. At dusk of the 13th day, a change occurred. The bloodlight between the eyebrows of the statue seemed to reach a limit and covered most of the sky. The surroundings were shrouded in the bloodlight, and a few breaths later, a drop of blood slowly formed between the eyebrows of the statue. After a long time, a second drop still hadn't appeared. "Only one drop?" The man in the royal robe revealed an undetectable amount of contempt in his eyes. Not only him, but all the ancient clan members around were all filled with disappointment. They had waited for 13 days in order to witness a miracle, and they didn't expect to only see one drop. However, just at this moment, loud exclamations came from people. A second drop of blood flew out from between the eyebrows of the statue. Shortly after, the third and fourth drops of blood flew out. 4 drops. It's actually 4 drops. It's been a long time since wishing for likes on the VIDEO. The little pig wishing for the like button for the VIDEO's support. The man in the royal robe stared at the eyebrows of the statue with a hint of surprise. 4 drops of blood wasn't enough to shock him, though. Even Yi Mo had obtained 3 drops. Although a majority of people only obtained 1 drop of blood during this calamity, there were still a lot who obtained 2 drops. Aside from Yi Mo, most with the royal bloodline could obtain at least 2 drops of ancient race heavenly blood. What's more, the royal robed man himself had obtained 6 drops of blood. He was the strongest person among the Dao clan aside from Xuan Luo. Therefore, he became the king of the Dao clan. His status was very high, and he was revered by countless people. Even so, he was not taken as a disciple by Xuan Luo. He had already brooded over this matter, but didn't he dare to bring it up. When he heard Grand Empyrean Xuan Luo say that he was going to take Yi Mo Sayer as a disciple, he felt very gloomy, but he didn't reveal it. 4 drops of blood, this kind of thing hasn't happened in a long time. However, 4 drops of blood should be the limit. You can see that the light from the statue is becoming dim. With 13 days of time, 4 drops isn't a lot. There was a lot of debate from the people around the statue. Their eyes were all gathered on the statue. They watched the monstrous red light slowly dissipate until only a tiny bit remained between the eyebrows. At this moment, the nearly 1 million ancient clan members knew that this was about to be over. The man in the royal robe remained calm but sneered in his heart. Merely 4 drops of blood. How could he have the power to protect my Dao clan? Today's matter was made a bigger deal than it really is. If uncle wants to accept a disciple, my Dao clan has several members who obtained 4 drops. Even when I obtained 6 drops, he didn't consider me. If he still decides to accept Yi Mo Sayer, then I'll be the first to disagree. The man in the royal robe didn't reveal his true thoughts at all and instead revealed a hint of regret. He shook his head and smiled bitterly as he spoke softly to Grand Empyrean Xuan Luo beside him. Uncle, 4 drops is quite a lot. Yi Mo Sayer can be considered a genius in our Dao clan. Grand Empyrean Xuan Luo's expression remained bland, as if he hadn't heard the man in the royal robe at all. He looked at the eyebrows of the statue, and watched the red light become more faint until only a sliver remained. He also watched the 4 drops that had appeared amid a crystal-clear light. They broke through the void and disappeared into the distance. After a long time, the black-haired young man slowly said, "Let's wait a bit more." The man in the royal robe nodded in agreement, but his heart was filled with disdain. Aside from uncle, no one else in the Dao clan has better talent than me. Yi Mo wasn't talented enough, and his heir is also not talented enough. Time slowly passed on the immortal astral continent. At this moment, inside the rift in the cloud sea, Wang Lin's avatar was sitting on the edge of the altar. He looked at the drop of blood formed by his original body, which was at the center of the altar. This drop of blood quietly floated there, motionless, but at this moment a howl began to echo inside this strange space. Ripples echoed from nowhere and a powerful ancient aura slowly spread out. This aura was far beyond anything in the cave world, and not even the Grand Empyrean could compare to it. However, this aura wasn't scary, and didn't attract the attention of anyone else. Only Wang Lin could feel it. Ripples echoed above the altar and a giant vortex appeared. It slowly rotated and thunderous rumbles echoed from it. The vortex shrouded the entire altar, and a powerful force spread, pushing Wang Lin's avatar off the altar. This force that pushed Wang Lin's avatar caused Wang Lin's mind to tremble. This force was more powerful than the might of heaven. It was more powerful than any pressure Wang Lin had ever faced. Forget him, even 7-colored would be forced off this altar. Wang Lin felt like the drop of blood formed by his original body was burning, and it released a blood light that seemed to be communicating with the vortex. As the blood light came out from the vortex, a drop of blood flew out and shot toward the drop of blood formed by Wang Lin's original body. Soon, the 2 drops of blood fused into one. At this instant, Wang Lin's avatar immediately sat down. Intense pain came from his mind. This pain made it almost impossible to control his avatar, and he had to focus all his attention on his avatar. The moment he sat down, his consciousness left his avatar and was completely immersed inside that drop of blood. Unspeakable pain echoed through his consciousness. Although he had no body, he felt the pain of his body burning. The drop of blood that had fused with him seemed to be boiling. Just at this moment, the second drop of blood flew out from the vortex and fused with Wang Lin. The pain inside Wang Lin's consciousness increased several-fold, but he could not let out a roar, he could only endure. Shortly after, the 3rd drop of blood flew out from the vortex and fused with Wang Lin. This caused Wang Lin's drop of blood to expand to 3 feet wide, and the shadow of a naked body condensed. This body had a head of white hair. It was Wang Lin. His body was covered in intricate runes that looked extremely bizarre. His eyes were shut and muffled groans of pain came from his mouth. His body gradually took shape. The fourth drop of blood flew out of the vortex. When it flew out, red light filled this endless space. A ray of red light shot out and landed directly between Wang Lin's eyebrows. With this, Wang Lin's body trembled and his eyes suddenly opened. His eyes were red and his body was trembling. A powerful force surged in his body, causing popping sounds to echo inside him. After fusing with these 4 drops of blood, a bloodline was born. This bloodline was that of the Ancient Ones. From now on, Wang Lin was a real member of the Ancient Clan and a citizen of the Ancient Country. After the 4th drop of blood flew out, the vortex above showed signs of dissipating, and once it was gone, this calamity would be over. Although Wang Lin had passed it, he could only obtain 4 drops, just 1 more than Yi Mo. This was already a lot for him. After all, he had obtained Yi Mo's inheritance, and 4 drops was already 1 more than Yi Mo. This was already Wang Lin's limit. He was not a genius, not born on the immortal astral continent, and he was merely a lowly cave creature. He could not compare to the man in the royal robe, who had obtained 6 drops of blood and became a member of the royal family. Wang Lin didn't have anything compared to a blessed individual like that. He also couldn't compare to Grand Empyrean Xuanluo, who was one of the 9 sons, one of the strongest 9 people on the immortal astral continent. Such a legendary existence was above all others, and he had obtained 8 drops of blood. Wang Lin could not compare to such a person. The only thing he had was his fortitude and unyielding nature, and his unwillingness to be controlled by others. Through countless life and death struggles, he had gone from a weak mortal to his current self. Looking back, such hardships were really shocking. While he faced countless life and death struggles, the Emperor and the Ancient Ones of the immortal astral continent cultivated in peace. With the Grand Empyrean guarding them, they rarely faced life and death encounters. While Wang Lin went through countless life and death struggles to gain his resources, the man wearing the royal robe was guarded by countless people while he cultivated. No matter what he wanted, his clan would immediately send it to him. While Wang Lin hugged Li Muan and cried out, and while Wang Lin struggled desperately to revive Li Muan, the man in the royal robe played with the strange treasures his people had brought him. He could choose any woman and make them one of his many concubines. 4 drops of blood is my limit. The bloodline in Wang Lin's body gradually condensed. He looked at the gradually disappearing vortex above him. He was not satisfied. Although he didn't know the commotion he was causing on the immortal astral continent, this was his personality. He was not satisfied. He wanted his bloodline to be even stronger. For nothing else but his unyielding, heaven-defying will. Since you recognize my ancient bloodline, then 4 drops of blood is not enough. There was coldness in Wang Lin's eyes as he leaped into the air and charged toward the dissipating vortex. He was different from all the Ancient Ones on the immortal astral continent. He had survived in the cave world, and in his heart, he never respected the ancient ancestor. He didn't respect such an ethereal existence. He only believed in his own strength. This was something that no one on the immortal astral continent, not even Grand Empyrean Xuanluo, could comprehend. Even Grand Empyrean Xuanluo still held great respect for the existence of this ancestor. But Wang Lin was different. He was the first person who was not satisfied with the drops of ancient race heavenly blood, so he rushed into the vortex. The year of the dragon is approaching. Leo's year is coming fast, fervently shouting for the like button for the VIDEO, wishing to be drowned in happiness by the likes for the VIDEO. Throughout the ages, among the 3 clans of the ancient country of the immortal astral continent, no one had taken that step. This was related to the environment in which they grew up in. They lived under the protection of the 3 Grand Empyreans, under the rules of the 3 emperors, under the light of their ancestors. They almost fervently admired the ancient ancestor. He was their heaven. No matter how arrogant they were, they didn't dare to show even a little disrespect toward the ancient ancestor. This was something instilled in them from the moment they were born. Everyone who lived around them was the same. Even Grand Empyrean Xuanluo was like this. This just shows how impactful it was. However, Wang Lin was different. He moved like a ray of light and closed in on the dissipating vortex. His figure revealed fortitude, boundless tyranny, and a powerful, unyielding nature. If he hadn't obtained the recognition of the ancient ancestor, it wouldn't matter, but since he had, He didn't agree with only 4 drops. However, Wang Lin's view was different. The so-called recognition was just identifying someone as their descendant so they would have your bloodline. Wang Lin didn't need this bloodline. If he wanted to, he could get the celestial bloodline from the madman. It was an existence equal to the ancient bloodline. Because of this, Wang Lin would charge into the vortex. If this so-called ancient ancestor didn't give him more blood, he would force those 4 drops of blood out of his body and give up his identity as an ancient one. He would take the celestial bloodline, obtain the immortal celestial body, and become a celestial. You recognize me, but I haven't recognized you. If you want me to recognize this bloodline, then give me more blood and power. Wang Lin didn't fear this ancient ancestor, so he dared to demand conditions. Once I recognize a bloodline, I will never betray it, but trying to make me accept it with only 4 drops is too cheap. Wang Lin roared as he rushed at the vortex. His roar entered the vortex and echoed inside. It formed a series of echoes that swirled inside the vortex. Just as Wang Lin entered the vortex, an indifferent aura that was like a divine sense spread out and shrouded him. This prevented Wang Lin from entering and kept him outside the vortex. The aura this divine sense gave off was ancient and contained no emotion at all, as if it were dead. Wang Lin floated inside the aura and coldly stared at the vortex. His eyes lit up and his right hand pointed to the spot between his eyebrows. After lifting his hand, there was a milky white light at his fingertip. He waved his right hand and the void beside him distorted, revealing various pictures. There was a black-robed young man in this picture, and he was only at the core formation stage. He was in the land of the ancient god on planet Suzaku. The picture changed again. After the young man in black experienced many things, he finally obtained ancient god Tusi's memory inheritance. You can see it? This is when I first obtained the ancient god inheritance. Wang Lin spoke slowly. Then he waved his right hand. The pictures changed and revealed how Wang Lin had obtained his ancient god inheritance. This continued until the end, when he was in the ancient tomb. These were Wang Lin's memories, and he made them appear. Since you have a spirit, then ponder how many drops of blood are needed for me to accept your bloodline, or else destroy me and I'll give up the ancient bloodline and become a celestial. Wang Lin's words were cold, and after he finished speaking, the aura around him suddenly left. It retreated back into the vortex. It seemed to ponder for a long time, and the vortex that was about to dissipate rumbled once more and began to rotate. It slowly reformed, and even more bloodlight began to spread out. On the immortal astral continent, on the city floating in the sky in the Dao clan, nearly 1 million ancient clan members waited. The man in the royal robe was about to lose his patience, but he didn't dare to speak. The originally dim sliver of bloodlight between the eyebrows of the statue suddenly erupted with red light. This red light shrouded the world and caused the surroundings to be bathed in red. This sudden change caused an uproar. This is impossible. There is even more bloodlight. Could the 5th drop be about to form? Throughout the ages, the ancient race heavenly blood was all formed at once. Such a change has never happened before. The bloodlight has reappeared. The expression of the man in the royal robe changed for the first time. He stared at the light between the eyebrows of the statue and shock appeared in his eyes. How can this be? It was obviously going to end. How could this happen? This. Only the black-haired young man, Grand Empyrean Xuan Luo, revealed a smile. His eyes revealed a strange light as he stared at the statue, remaining silent. While the nearly 1 million ancient clan members were in shock, the bloodlight gathered between the eyebrow of the statue and a 5th drop of blood flew out. This 5th drop confirmed everyone's speculations and immediately set off a monstrous wave. Everyone was in shock. All their gazes gathered on the statue. After a long time, only the 5th drop appeared. After seeing this, the man in the royal robe finally relaxed. 5 drops, so what if there are 5 drops? I obtained 6 drops and became the emperor of the Dao clan. I don't believe he can. The eyes of the man in the royal robe shined. Just as he began to think this, what happened next caused his thoughts to collapse. His whole body trembled. The bloodlight became monstrous again, and this time the 6th drop of blood flew out. 6 drops of blood. 6 drops. Same as the emperor. This is our Dao clan's great fortune. Not 6 drops. It has 7 drops. When the bloodlight gathered, the crowd went into an uproar. The face of the man in the royal robe turned purple, and the seventh drop flew out. What was even more amazing was that as Grand Empyrean Xuan Luo laughed, the eighth drop appeared. 8 drops of blood. Even Grand Empyrean Xuan Luo had only obtained 8 drops. The surrounding people almost lost their minds as they stared at the statue in shock. The man in the royal robe subconsciously licked his lips, and there was an almost undetectable flash of coldness in his eyes. How could Yi Moser obtain such recognition from the ancestor and be given 8 drops of blood? I am the real descendant of the ancient ancestor. I am the royal bloodline. I am the greatest genius of the ancient clan besides uncle. The man in the royal robe took a deep breath and suppressed the jealousy in his heart. He could not let Grand Empyrean Xuan Luo see this. His gloomy expression was hidden by a smile. The man in the royal robe faced the black-haired young man and smiled. Congratulations, uncle. It seems this child will become your only disciple. Perhaps one day he will even surpass uncle and come a new Grand Empyrean for the Dao clan. The heart of the man in the royal robe was sinister. Although these words sounded nice, they were filled with hidden meanings. However, his words were lacking any sense of falsehood, as if he really had spoken due to the joy he felt. It was difficult to see anything off about them. The black-haired young man remained the same after hearing his, only he turned around and looked meaningfully at the man in the royal robe. With this gaze, the man in the royal robe trembled. Just as he was about to speak, he heard another uproar. He looked back at the statue, and his heart skipped a beat, his face immediately turning pale. The 9th drop slowly formed under this heaven-shattering uproar. The 9th drop of blood caused Grand Empyrean Xuan Luo's eyes to shine brightly. The joy in his eyes could be seen clearly by everyone. However, this was not the end. After the 9th drop of blood, the bloodlight gathered once more. As everyone was holding their breaths, the 10th drop of blood showed signs of appearing. The 10th drop, something that has never happened throughout the ages, the 10th drop. 10 drops of the ancient ancestor blood. This is unbelievable. 10 drops of blood. Doesn't that mean this person is the real emperor of the Dao clan? Even the royal family has never obtained 10 drops of blood. Who the hell is this person? Could he become the future emperor of our Dao clan? The man in the royal robe was livid and almost lost control of the crazed jealousy in his heart. He stared at the bloodlight gathering between the eyebrows of the statue. All the bloodlight in the area gathered and formed a drop of blood. This drop of blood was not red, but purple. The moment the drop of purple blood formed, the expression of the man in the royal robe changed greatly, and he subconsciously took a few steps back. His eyes revealed more shock, horror, and disbelief than before. Ancient ancestor soul blood. This is soul blood. It's impossible. The Grand Empyrean expression changed for the first time. He stared at the drop of purple blood, and revealed shock in his eyes for the first time. He was not even shocked by the 9th drop, but at this moment, he was shocked. Ancient ancestor, you sending out a drop of soul blood. Could this mean something? Soul blood, this soul blood throughout the ages, only 9 drops of soul blood have appeared. 3 drops of soul blood created one of the ancient clans. 9 drops of soul blood created the current 3 ancient clans. The black-haired young man took a deep breath. His right hand pointed at the sky, and the world changed colors. A large red sun appeared, shrouding this area, preventing anyone from the outside from seeing what was happening here. I sealed this place with my Empyrean sun. Members of my Dao clan, do not tell anyone of this matter. Anyone who violates this will die, no matter their identity. Grand Empyrean Xuan Luo spoke slowly. He turned around and gave the man in the royal robe a profound look. Did you hear that? The man in the royal robe lowered his head and quickly answered, yes. However, the jealousy inside his heart had almost reached the point of collapse. The black-haired young man raised his head and looked toward the land occupied by the Celestials. He slowly muttered, I am going to the land of the Celestials to bring this child back here. 6,000 words in a major chapter. Wishing for sharing, for likes on the video. 5 drops of blood and 1 drop of purple soul blood shined brightly before the statue. After Grand Empyrean Xuan Luo sealed the aura with the power of his Empyrean sun, these 6 drops of blood flew off into the distance. Ripples appeared in the sky, forming a giant vortex, and the center of the vortex seemed to connect to the void. The 6 drops of blood flew into the vortex and disappeared before everyone's gazes. The last to disappear was the purple soul blood. The appearance of this drop of soul blood shook everyone. They also revealed disbelief, horror, and awe. They looked at the demonic purple light that came from the soul blood and watched it disappear into the vortex. After that, they became sober, and the shock became even more intense. The shock was like a wave that shrouded their bodies and souls. Purple soul blood, my God, I saw a drop of purple soul blood. In all the generations of the ancient country, there have only been 9 drops. Legend says that the ancient ancestor gave 9 drops of soul blood to his 3 sons. These 3 sons each created one of the ancient clans. My clan is the Dao clan formed by his 3rd son, and it has lasted until today. Now the 10th drop of blood has appeared this. Who is experiencing the first calamity of the 3rd trial? I have never heard of soul blood appearing during this calamity. This matter is too amazing. This is definitely a shocking event for my ancient country. There are 3 calamities in the 3rd trial, the first calamity being the ancient race heavenly blood. He obtained 9 drops of blood, followed by a drop of soul blood, and this is only the first calamity. If he reaches the second calamity, ancient Tao 3 distractions, what kind of fortune will he obtain in that calamity? There is also the last calamity, blessing of the ancient ancestor, if he obtains such high recognition from the ancient ancestor. I can imagine what he will obtain then, maybe the legendary ancient ancestor inheritance that no one has obtained before. Debates began to echo as everyone was shaken by the drop of soul blood. Fortunately, this place had been sealed by Grand Empyrean Xuan Luo, and with his powerful might he prevented people from leaking what had happened here. Otherwise, this matter would set off a huge wave on the immortal astral continent. The Ji and Shi clans would definitely come to investigate once they learned of this. It could even cause a dispute. It has to be said that the appearance of the 10th drop of soul blood was simply too important for the ancient country. If Wang Lin could obtain 2 more drops, then he could scatter his essence blood and form the 4th ancient clan like the ancient ancestor's 3 sons. If the Celestials knew of this, they would be shocked. Even though this wooden T set off a huge war, they would send people to pay close attention. Everything was because of this drop of soul blood. After the 6 drops of blood disappeared into the vortex and the bloodlight disappeared, the aura disappeared as well. Grand Empyrean Xuan Luo waved his right hand at the red sun that shrouded the area. The sun suddenly gave off even brighter light and divided into nearly 1 million pieces. It landed on the bodies of everyone here, forming a sealing spell. After everything was done, the sun that shrouded this place dissipated, and the sky returned to normal. The wind blew by as if it wanted to blow away the shock and tension that was here. Grand Empyrean Xuan Luo looked into the distance and stepped forward without hesitation, disappearing without a trace. He was going to the Celestials' land, to the 7 Dao sect, to the cave to take that child back home. After Xuan Luo left, the city in the sky remained silent for a long time. Then the man in the royal robe left with an extremely gloomy heart. After he left, everyone else slowly left, while still filled with shock. Everything that had happened here was buried deeply at the bottom of their hearts. As they scattered, they all looked at where Grand Empyrean Xuan Luo went. There was complication, envy, jealousy in their eyes, but what overpowered all of that was expectation. They were looking forward to Grand Empyrean Xuan Lu bringing back the person that shocked them. They were even more looking forward to seeing what this person looked like and who this person was. My Dao clan is the weakest of the 3 ancient countries. I hope the Grand Empyrean's return will change all of this. It wasn't until everyone had dissipated that the emperor returned to the depths of the city in the sky, to his palace. This palace was so large it was very difficult to see where it ended. It was filled with intricate carvings and was extremely luxurious. There were many servants inside the palace. Their faces were pale and they were extremely nervous. This fear came from the terrifying aura that came from one of the sub-palaces to the east. This aura was filled with an irrepressible sense of anger. Thunderous rumbles echoed across the palace. The resident palace for the emperor collapsed and a powerful shockwave spread. Some of the workers and bodyguards couldn't avoid it fast enough and all died miserably. The smell of blood spread out. A person gradually walked out from the ruins of the collapsed palace. He was the man in the royal robe. His eyes were calm and lacking any emotion. After he walked out from the ruins, he didn't even look back before he slowly said, "Clean this up. I want to see a new palace in 3 days." After he spoke, hundreds of smoke-like figures appeared and knelt before him. The man in the royal robe waved his sleeve and disappeared without a trace. When he reappeared, he was in the tallest tower in the palace. He stood there, facing the world as he overlooked the palace and the ancient ancestor statue that pierced the sky. I am the Dao country's emperor, a true descendant of the ancient ancestor, and his blood flows through me. A mere heir of Yi Mo, what qualifications does he have to be valued so greatly by Xuan Luo? Soul blood. The man in the royal blood looked calm, but his right hand formed a fist. He suddenly began to laugh. This is good as well. This will be a bit interesting. I want to see what kind of wave he can set off. Even though he has the soul blood, he will still have to kneel before me. The man in the royal robe smiled even wider and withdrew his gaze. He waved his right hand and a fist-sized red bead appeared in his grasp. There seemed to be countless mist-like clouds inside, slowly rotating, and there was a soul sitting inside. It was impossible to clearly see what the soul looked like. One could only tell it was the soul of a woman. This soul wasn't T-complete. It was only part of a soul. The man in the royal robe looked at the red bead in his hand and slowly said, "Ye die. Servant is here." After the man in the royal robe spoke, the light behind him became twisted, and an old man in black walked out. He knelt down on one knee before the man in the royal robe. The man in the royal robe calmly asked, "Did you find her?" "Emperor, this servant has searched the entire ancient country and couldn't find this woman. Now I have sent people to the Celestials, and will receive news soon." "There is no news from the imperial teacher?" The man in the royal robe frowned. The old man kneeling there remained cool and calmly spoke. "Although the imperial teacher gifted the soul of this woman to your majesty, the imperial teacher can't find her. However, this woman will be of great use to your majesty in the future. With this woman, your majesty can have a complete ancient country." He only told this servant that he was divinating the future of my ancient Dao country, and his mind was integrated with the underworld. He went to a strange place he had never seen before and extracted her soul from a piece of heavenly Dao. The man in the royal robe silently pondered for a moment and then looked at the red bead in his hand. His eyes revealed a strange light. "This woman looks too ordinary for me to acknowledge. However, if she is really as imperial teacher says, then I'll take her as my empress. Continue to search for people among the Celestials. If you really can find any, then find a woman in the ancient country who can fuse with this soul." "Yes!" The old man in black got up and was about to leave. He hesitated for a moment, and after pondering for a long time, he clasped his hands to speak again. "Emperor, before the imperial teacher went into closed-door cultivation, he said one more thing." "Speak!" The man in the royal robe looked at the red bead in his hand, and his voice was filled with majesty. "He said that his divination may or may not be true. When he extracted the soul of this woman, he saw two images. One was the emperor uniting the ancient country, and the other was the emperor dead. In these two images there was another figure present. This figure was a bit vague, and the imperial teacher couldn't see him clearly, but this person had a head of white hair." "Interesting. You can leave." The man in the royal robe revealed a flash of coldness in his eyes. He looked at the bead in his hand and slowly smiled. "You woman, who are you? What kind of relationship do you have with the white-haired figure the imperial teacher saw?" The soul of the woman inside the red bead sat there motionless. Her figure was obscured by the mist, and she seemed not to know what was happening at all. At this moment, wind blew by and landed the man in the royal robe. The bead also seemed to feel the wind, and the mist around the woman seemed to churn. Just as her figure was about to be revealed, it was suddenly covered up by the finger of the hand that clenched the bead. In the cave world, in the rift in the cloud sea, the giant vortex above the altar rumbled. The bloodlight shined on Wang Lin's body, making him look like he was made of blood. His eyes narrowed and stared into the depths of the vortex. He eventually saw a few drops of blood fly out from the vortex. Nearly 3,800 words, already quite long. Day by day people say it's short, look at others, all are 2,000 words a chapter. Leo is that long. Wouldn't you cast a like for Leo's video? Chapter 1711, Ancient Tao Defying. The fifth drop, sixth drop until the ninth drop of blood flew out from the vortex and shot toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin's eyes shined brightly as he stared at the drops of blood that were flying toward him. He didn't dodge and allowed the 5 drops of blood to land between his eyebrows. They seemed to penetrate through his body. When the 5th drop of blood fused, a thunderous rumble came from Wang Lin's body, and a powerful force erupted from the blood. Wang Lin couldn't help but take a few steps back, his eyes shining brightly. That powerful feeling made him clench his fists. At this moment, this sixth drop of blood followed shortly after and entered Wang Lin. Thunderous rumbles echoed, and all the blood in his body seemed to boil. He rapidly absorbed the bloodline force inside this drop of blood. It flowed through his entire body, and when it entered his heartbeat was like a roaring bolt of thunder. He retreated once more and let out a roar at the sky. Intense pain came from his body. This pain was countless times stronger than the fusion of the previous 4 drops of blood. It was as if his body was being torn apart and new flesh and blood were growing. Shortly after, the 7th drop arrived, and the moment it entered the spot between Wang Lin's eyebrows, his expression became twisted. The veins on his body swelled, and the speed of his blood flow reached a limit. Wang Lin's body began to move strangely, and as the blood flowed through his body, his bones also gave off a red light. The ancient bloodline forced inside his body rapidly increased. It went from very thin to extremely pure. The members of the ancient clan were same as the Celestials. The stronger their bloodline, the more noble their identity and the more power they could display. The fusion of 7 drops of blood made Wang Lin's bloodline second only to the ancient Tao Emperor. It has to be known that the Emperor was a descendant of the ancient Emperor and therefore held the ancient ancestor's bloodline. As a result, after obtaining 6 drops of blood, he became the ancient Tao Emperor. However, Wang Lin didn't have any Ancient One bloodline and hadn't received recognition yet. Even though this was the case, the bloodline formed by 7 drops of blood could compare to the Emperor, who already had the bloodline and had obtained 6 drops of blood. The difference between the two was a difference in essence, like that of an emperor and an ordinary citizen. However, this difference wasn't immutable, and the 8th drop of blood flew toward Wang Lin. The moment it fused with him, the bloodline became even more pure, and the rumbles from his body became more intense. Bursts of pain came from Wang Lin's bone marrow, causing him to continue to retreat and tremble. The ancient bloodline was the same as the celestial bloodline. It changed the bone marrow. Once the bone marrow was changed, the blood one produced would change, and the power of the bloodline would be born. However, it was difficult to change the bone marrow from within, so external force was needed to slowly change it. This external force was the drops of blood that had entered Wang Lin's body. As they flowed through his body, they were rapidly changing his bone marrow. Wang Lin's bloodline had gone from ordinary to noble, from a mess to authentic. The fusion of 8 drops of blood didn't make Wang Lin's blood become pure enough to reach the same level as the Emperor, but it was infinitely close, just a trace more. This gap was crossed and surpassed once the 9th drop fused. 9 drops of blood fused with Wang Lin's bones and changed his bone marrow completely. He now had a bloodline that was even more pure than the Emperor's. In terms of bloodline, Wang Lin had the most pure blood among the Tao clan. However, it was not over yet. The appearance of the soul blood caused the surroundings to be bathed in a purple light. This purple blood had a strange force, and the moment it appeared, it captured Wang Lin's full attention. He looked at the purple drop of blood. A sense of longing from his blood filled his body. The purple blood released a monstrous purple light and imprinted itself between Wang Lin's eyebrows. It didn't fuse with his blood or bloodline. This drop of blood fused with Wang Lin's soul. The purity of his bloodline would allow Wang Lin to erupt with ancient power, but it wouldn't change his soul. In the end, his soul would still be that of a member of the ancient Tao clan. However, this soul blood could change Wang Lin's soul, allow his soul to be above the others of the Tao clan, allow him to truly become an existence more noble than that emperor. It would be as if he had become the ancient ancestor's 4th son. The moment the drop of soul blood flew over, Wang Lin was stunned, and his eyes were filled with confusion. His body moved back on its down until he landed on the altar. He leaned against Yimo's arm and lied there. The vortex slowly dissipated and soon disappeared without a trace. Everything returned to normal, as if nothing had happened. If there was any difference, then it was quiet. It was so terrifyingly quiet that there was not the slightest bit of sound. All the fierce beasts had hidden themselves. They trembled and didn't dare to make a sound. There seemed to be a pressure spreading out in this strange silence. Wang Lin was unconscious. If he didn't wake up, this place would remain quiet for tens of thousands of years. If he didn't wake up, no sound would appear here. This pressure came from his body and spread out across the surrounding area. Wang Lin's original body was asleep, and his avatar was floating outside the altar. His avatar sat there with its eyes closed and remained motionless. As Wang Lin was asleep, he had a dream. This dream was different from the dream Dao. It wasn't clear and very blurry. In this dream, Wang Lin saw a person. This was an ordinary-looking man. His body was extremely large and the heavens and earth seemed to be below his feet. He stood there, looking over the world with a hint of contempt. If I want this sky to collapse, it will collapse. If I want this earth to break, it will break. If I want a being to die, no one would dare to stop me. If I want no celestials to remain alive, who would dare to save them? I am an ancient one. I was born before the heavens and earth and survived the beginning of the world. However, before me, there were celestials. The celestials wanted to make me their slave, so let me destroy the celestials. If I fail, then all my future generations will become enemies of the celestials and vow to rid the world of celestials. But will I lose? I'll never lose. 9 drops of soul blood I give to my 3 sons. You all take command of my ancient people. Wait for my reincarnation, wait for my heir to appear. Obeying means being immortal. Defying means being a celestial. Defying the celestials means becoming an ancient one. This dream slowly come to an end as the ordinary-looking man spoke those shocking words. Even after Wang Lin opened his eyes, those words still echoed in his ears. The 8 ancient god stars between Wang Lin's eyebrows revealed a hint of a purple glow and slowed rotated. The ancient devil and ancient demon stars in his eyes also rotated and gave off a faint hint of purple. This purple came from that soul blood. It came from Wang Lin's ancient one soul. He slowly sat up and looked at the space before him. After pondering for a long time, a powerful aura that looked down upon the world came from his body. This aura disrespected heavens and the earth. Even if the heavens and earth decay, I want to decay. Even if the world withers, I want to wither. This aura belonged to the defying nature of the ancient ones. At this moment, Wang Lin was vastly different from before. As he sat on the altar, his gaze swept past his surroundings. His gaze moved past his avatar and eventually landed on Yi Mo's giant arm. His eyes shined brightly. This arm contained a powerful force. This power seemed to be able to tear open the world. This was ancient Dao Yi Mo's most powerful force. Staring at this arm, Wang Lin slowly raised his right hand and pressed down. The moment he pressed down, his 24 stars rotated, and a burst of purple light surrounded him. This purple light entered Yi Mo's arm. In an instant, the giant arm trembled and seemed like it was going to struggle and resist. Although Wang Lin had obtained Yi Mo's inheritance, it wasn't perfect. If he wanted to merge with the arm, there would be some difficulties. However, this was only difficult for Wang Lin before he went through the ancient race heavenly blood calamity. Now that he had obtained 9 drops of blood and the drop of soul blood, it was simply insignificant to him. Yi Mo, give this arm to me. Wang Lin spoke slowly. It was as if he was muttering to himself, but also as if he was speaking to the dead Yi Mo. His voice was calm, and as he spoke, the purple light from the 24 stars became even stronger. It spread out an aura that would frighten Yi Mo if he was alive. This aura entered Wang Lin's right hand, and he pressed down on the arm once more. There was a thunderous rumble, and the arm stopped struggling. The arm slowly shrank until it integrated with Wang Lin's right hand, causing his right hand to suddenly become very different. Wang Lin's right hand was extremely rough compared to his left arm, and was covered in countless complicated runes. It also gave off a hint of greenish blue. It could frighten anyone at a glance. He raised his right hand before him. Wang Lin's gaze was calm as he looked at his right arm. After a long time, he grasped at the void. Heaven ripping. Space trembled, and as Wang Lin's right hand ripped, the world collapsed. The shadow of a huge arm appeared behind him and tore open the space. A large rift appeared before Wang Lin and widened. It had been torn open by him. This heaven-tearing power could even kill an early-stage arcane void cultivator. Even mid-stage errands void cultivators would have to retreat in fear. With this tearing force, the altar Wang Lin was on buzzed and trembled. Ripples echoed as if it was resisting the fallout from the heaven ripping. Wang Lin carefully looked at the altar below him as the ripples echoed. His eyes revealed a strange light. There is something strange about this altar. The last day of June, wishing for the like button for the VIDEO. A sweep of the like button for the VIDEO each month. The June ticket expires tonight at 12. You are listening to a completely free audiobook on the Leo Audio YouTube channel. If you enjoy the story, please like the video to motivate the channel. Support Leo with a cup of coffee through the description link or on the screen. If you want to hear any other stories, just comment and let Leo know. Thank you very much for watching the video. Chapter 1712, 3, Life Spell. Since arriving at the altar, Wang Lin hadn't had time to observe this place. Most of his attention had been on the arm on the altar. Even though he was very cautious and had scanned this altar with his divine sense, he hadn't found anything abnormal. However, after he absorbed the blood and the soul blood, along with the ripple caused by heaven ripping, the veil covering the altar was lifting. Wang Lin's eyes shined. Why would the altar appear here? And why is Yi Mo's right arm here? Wang Lin pondered as he carefully looked at the altar. This altar was very ordinary. Nothing looked abnormal about it. If not for the ripples echoing above it, it would be very difficult to see anything strange about it. As the heaven-ripping spell disappeared, the ripples also slowly faded until they returned back to normal. Wang Lin stood up and walked off the altar. At the same time, his avatar also got up and walked forward. After taking one step, his avatar and original body overlapped. The two figures slowly overlapped and slowly fused together. Wang Lin moved his body, and after finding no discomfort, he looked back at the altar. Then there was a flash of coldness in his eyes, and his hands formed seals, sending restrictions flying out. There were almost 1 million restrictions. He pointed forward with his right hand, and the 1 million restrictions flew out toward the altar. They landed on the altar one by one. Every restriction caused the altar to tremble lightly. As more restrictions landed, the altar trembled even more violently. Near the end, thunderous rumbles echoed, as if the altar was going to collapse. As the altar trembled violently, fine cracks appeared on it. Soon, rubble began to fall off from the altar and scattered. Wang Lin became cautious. His hands formed seals and created even more restrictions. They surrounded the altar and slowly landed on it one by one. This caused the altar to tremble even more violently, and even more rubble fell off. After half an incense stick of time, a layer or rubble had fallen off the altar, and it looked like a layer of fog surrounded it. The altar had shrunk about a circle in size, and even more cracks had appeared on its surface. The strangeness about the altar is likely what's within, but there is a strange force preventing me from seeing what's inside with my divine sense. Wang Lin stared at the altar, and created 1 million more restrictions. The countless restrictions landed on the altar, and even more layers fell off until it was only half its original size. Just at this moment, when the altar was covered in cracks, one of the cracks seemed to reach the center of the altar. A blood-red light erupted from the crack and took the shape of a fan. It was as if a gem had been found hidden under mud, and an opening allowed the light to shine through. Wang Lin's eyes lit up, and he stared at the crack, releasing the red light. He controlled the countless restrictions around him, and they all flew into that crack. However, just as the restrictions got near the crack, more red light came from another crack. Shortly after, the third, fourth, fifth, more than 10 rays of light shot out from the altar, forming a red ripple. When the large amount of restrictions touched the red ripple, it was like snowflakes touching hot charcoal. A sizzling sound echoed, and they all immediately dissipated. All of this happened in the blink of an eye, and all of the restrictions disappeared due to the red light. It was as if they were natural enemies. Wang Lin stared at the altar that had shrunk more than half and was surrounded by the red light. His eyes shined brightly. This red light looks very familiar. Could this altar be? Wang Lin's heart trembled. The moment the red light spread out and got close to him, Wang Lin's right hand clawed at the red light. Yi Mo's giant arm suddenly appeared before him, and also clawed at the void before him. Heaven ripping, Wang Lin let out a roar, and his right hand tore to the side. With this roar, he used the full power of Yi Mo's right arm and also his 8-star ancient god, ancient demon, and ancient devil power. This tearing force was powerful enough to rip the heavens apart. Thunderous rumbles echoed, and the red ripple coming from the altar distorted violently and was torn apart by Wang Lin. What collapsed with it were the cracks on the altar. Under Wang Lin's heaven-ripping spell, the cracks collapsed on a wide scale. The red light wanted to prevent this, but was unable to resist. Thunderous rumbles echoed and the altar collapsed completely. The large amount of rubble scattered, and what was revealed before Wang Lin was an octagonal-shaped blood pool-like object that gave off a dazzling, red glow. An aura Wang Lin was familiar with spread out from this octagonal blood pool, and Wang Lin was filled with joy. So, it turns out to be that. There was a clan in the ancient star system called the Sealing Extermination Clan, and they had a spell called the Three Life Spell. In order to cultivate this spell, one would need the complete altar, but for some reason, it was split into 3 parts, and these parts had disappeared. Wang Lin was lucky and obtained the blood pavilion from the blood ancestor in the brilliant void. That blood pavilion was one of the 3 altars. Then he learned of the 3 life spell and obtained the 2nd altar from the ancient demon in Al Heaven. As for the 3rd altar, Wang Lin had looked for it, but couldn't find it. When he saw the bloodlight, a rumble echoed in his mind and he began to speculate. Right now he was certain that this blood pool gave off the same aura as that blood pavilion and the other altar. This was the aura of the Sealing Extermination Clan. 3 life spell! I didn't expect to obtain the last altar here. If I can learn it, my overall strength will increase greatly. Wang Lin's heart started beating rapidly. He had been tempted by the 3 life spell, and now that he had obtained the 3rd altar, he was very happy. Without hesitation, Wang Lin waved his hand and the altar he got from the ancient demon flew out. And shortly after, the blood ancestor's blood pavilion also flew out. A woman had gone into the blood pavilion before, and she was someone Wang Lin knew. However, over the years her body had long disappeared, and only a wisp of her soul remained. The 3 altars floated before him, and the blood light they gave off began to mix. It was obvious they were drawn to each other. Wang Lin had obtained the method of cultivating the 3 life spell from the woman from the Sealing Extermination Clan inside the ancient tomb. At this moment, after pondering a bit, Wang Lin sat down. The 3 life spell of the Sealing Extermination Clan is dangerous to learn, however. Compared to the benefits, the danger is worth it. Wang Lin's right hand reached toward the void. A clan mark that gave off a ghostly light appeared in his hand. This clan mark still had some dried blood marks on it. It was the Sealing Extermination Clan mark. Wang Lin had extracted it from the Sealing Extermination Clan woman who wanted to kill him back in the ancient tomb. Staring at the clan mark, Wang Lin pressed it between his eyebrows. A burning feeling spread out from the mark. Then countless branches extended out from the clan mark and attached themselves to Wang Lin. This kind of pain wasn't enough to affect Wang Lin at all. He remained calm as he bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood. With the Sealing Extermination Clan mark, I activate this altar and summon the sealed Sealing Extermination Clan's ancestral spirit. Turn into the sealing blade to cut 3 souls, 3 origin souls, 3 bodies. The moment Wang Lin's voice echoed, the blood he had spat out condensed together and began to wiggle before him rapidly. Then the 3 different altars all released blinding, red light that was absorbed by the blood. The blood slowly turned into the shape of a blade. It wasn't large, only about 10 feet long. It looked like overlapping shadows, and if one looked at it for too long, their vision would blur. Looking at it with his divine sense, Wang Lin immediately noticed that this wasn't one blade but 3 blades overlapping each other. The overlap created a strange aura around them. Wang Lin roared, "Cut 3 souls!" The long blade suddenly rose up and silently chopped down from above Wang Lin's head. This blade sliced through Wang Lin's entire body. Wang Lin's body trembled violently and his face turned pale. Unimaginable pain filled his body, making him feel as if his soul was going to collapse. However, he endured the pain and 2 souls slowly flew out from his head. However, just as the blade cut through Wang Lin, it seemed to be unable to withstand the power of Wang Lin's soul and collapsed. Out of the 3 overlapping blades, only 2 remained. Wang Lin's soul had fused with the ancient ancestor soul blood and was now an ancient Tao soul. So how could this mere blade cut his soul? If not for the fact that Wang Lin's soul was formed by his essence blood, the blade wouldn't be able to cut his soul at all. Even though it had cut Wang Lin's soul in 3, this blade couldn't withstand the rebound force from Wang Lin's soul. It dissipated forever and could never be summoned again. In dreams, Leo sees his video standing in 3rd place on the popular charts. Hoping to garner more fan support and looking for help from you all to climb even higher in the rankings this month, Chapter 1713. Chopping the Ghostly Sail. Cut 3 origin souls. Wang Lin endured the pain and let out a roar. As he roared, the double shadow blade rose up and fell down. There was a flash of bloodlight as the blade sliced through Wang Lin. His body trembled violently as this origin soul was split into 3 parts by the mysterious power of the Sealing Extermination clan. At the same time, one blade collapsed into pieces. Wang Lin clenched his teeth and roared without hesitation. Cut 3 bodies. As he roared, the blade that only had 1 shadow remaining sliced down toward Wang Lin. It was no longer silent, but created a loud howl. The long blade cut through Wang Lin and then collapsed. As it collapsed, Wang Lin's body divided into 3. These 3 bodies were fused with 3 souls and contained the 3 origin souls. At this moment, the 3 bodies flew toward each of the different Sealing Extermination clan altars. After the 3 altars absorbed the 3 Wang Lins, the bloodlight around them became even stronger. They slowly rotated around each other, and in the blink of an eye, 7 days passed. After 7 days, the light from the altars had faded a lot, but they were still flickering. Another 7 days passed and the bloodlight disappeared completely. The moment the bloodlight disappeared, a powerful aura erupted from one of the altars. This aura was too powerful for the altar to endure, so it ended up collapsing. As it collapsed, the first Wang Lin walked out. At the same time, another altar was rapidly trembling. It instantly disintegrated and pieces of rubble scattered. The second Wang Lin walked out. Shortly after that altar, the blood pavilion erupted layer by layer. The Ancient One aura was too powerful for the blood pavilion to withstand, so it shattered. The third Wang Lin walked out from the destroyed blood pavilion. The first Wang Lin said, 3 life spell. The second Wang Lin calmly said, force open the fortune. The third Wang Lin's eyes revealed a strange light as he muttered, 3 bodies, return into 1. As the 3 Wang Lins spoke, the 3 bodies all took 1 step forward. They overlapped and began to fuse. After a long time, they fused into 1 person. His white hair danced and he opened his eyes as he floated there. He felt the powerful vitality flowing through his body. There were 3 parts, and each was equal to himself at full power. The 3 life spell, it is indeed mysterious. With this I'll have 3 lives. Wang Lin opened his eyes, which were now filled with determination. He raised his right hand and the soul of a woman appeared. This woman was the one who had hidden herself inside the blood pavilion, someone he knew. Our grudge is gone. I'll send you into the reincarnation cycle. Behave yourself. Wang Lin waved his right hand and the woman's soul disappeared without a trace. Wang Lin looked at the remains of the 3 altars with eyes filled with pity. My soul and body are far too powerful. The altars of the Sealing Extermination clan could not withstand the impact of transforming me. Now that they have collapsed, there will no longer be any more 3 life spells. Wang Lin shook his head. What he had divided was not just his ancient Tao bloodline, but also his avatar. It could be said everything was divided into 3, and, as a result, he had 3 lives. My body has obtained the ancient Tao bloodline, and my ancient demon and ancient devil bodies have reached 8 stars. It is about time to leave, however. Before I leave, I need to refine the ghostly sail. With that, I might be able to form my 7th essence. Once the restriction essence appears, my cultivation level will increase from mid-stage spirit void to late-stage spirit void. With my ancient Tao bloodline, I should be able to battle late-stage arcane void cultivators. There is also the battle essence. Back then, all the comprehension turned into the Star of Law. I'll need some time to readjust, and if another essence could be born, then I'll reach the peak of arcane void. Wang Lin muttered to himself before sitting down. His right hand reached out and the ghostly sail appeared. The restriction essence is only secondary. More importantly, since Fan Shanman was able to borrow it to perform the illusion spell, this sail must contain the Great Soul Sect's illusion Tao spell. The illusion Tao is the key. I need to study it. If I can gain some insight, perhaps I can use this treasure to look for the 3rd soul, just like the 7-colored Taoist was trying to do. Right now it all depends on who can find the 3rd soul first. Wang Lin's eyes lit up, and various complicated plans were being deduced in his mind. I don't know what the 7-colored Taoist saw, but from this anger, he shouldn't have found where the 3rd soul went. Aside from him, there is also old Ghost John. He is also looking for the 3rd soul. I don't know what method he has, but they can be looked down upon. They triggered the war between the inner and outer realms to find the third soul. Now that the war is over, they are perhaps using that method to search for the third soul. Originally, there were only 2 of them searching, but now that the 4 generals have appeared, they are the third force that is also searching. There is also that other force from the 5-element planet. They have been hiding there for countless years and should show themselves soon. Third soul, who are you? Wang Lin silently pondered, and the thoughts in his mind gradually became more clear. Only by finding the third soul can I go to the gate and open it to take everyone to the immortal astral continent. Wang Lin closed his eyes, and after a long time, he opened them. His eyes were calm, and he no longer thought about these things. He was about to observe the ghostly sail. However, just at this moment, Wang Lin's expression suddenly became serious, as if thunder had rumbled in his mind. He looked into the distance, and his expression gradually became gloomy. I forgot one person. There was a flash of coldness in Wang Lin's eyes. He suddenly remembered one person. If someone were to tell him that person had died, he definitely wouldn't believe it. Allseer! That person obtained the heavenly Tao blood. Even though the Azure Dragon Divine Emperor said that the blood had problems, there is no way the Allseer is dead. He never appeared during the war with the Outer Realm. He disappeared without a trace. His schemes were amazing, and he has schemed against me many times. Now that he is hidden, how could I forget about him? Wang Lin's expression became gloomy. The 7-colored celestial sovereign was split into 3 souls and 7 fragments. As for the 7 fragments, I only know that Qing Shui is one of them. As for the other 6, I have my guesses. The Allseer, is he one of the 7 fragments or the third soul? Wang Lin's eyes shined. He recalled that the third soul had crossed the summoned river and entered the brilliant void. If the third soul ended up in the brilliant void, then it is very likely the Allseer. If he really is the third soul, it would be far too easy to find. Is he or is he not? Wang Lin frowned. He could never see through the Allseer. From the moment Wang Lin first became the Allseer's disciple, his dread already existed. It became even stronger as Allseer became even more mysterious. The Allseer has devoured a large amount of disciples, and I saw 3,000 avatars in his body. I didn't know why he was doing this, and thought he was just trying to reach the third step. However, looking at it now, perhaps he was trying to form Joss flames with those 3,000 avatars.